Hello and welcome to the Yerky Boys. May the Kandrona shine and strengthen you. My name is Will.
My name is Jonathan.
And we are the Yerky Boys. And this is our recap of what we're calling Season 4.
Yes, welcome to a special episode, the Season 4 Retrospective, looking back at the last several months of books coverage here on the one and only Yerky Boys podcast.
What's going on over there?
Stretching all the way back to March 26th of this year when we first read book 36, The Mutation, and going all the way up until just recently when we finished reading the Elemist Chronicles on July 9th. That's the period we're covering.
So this is our little chance to take a break from covering books and reflect on kind of where we are and what we think. As you said, we're doing books 36 through 47 and also the Elemist Chronicles and Megamorphs 4. We're getting pretty close to finishing up the series. This is our last big chunk of regular books before things start kicking into high gear. It's exciting. It's exciting. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm excited.
Okay, good.
Oh, my blood is pumping. Oh boy, it feels like I got helmicrons in my veins.
Wow. And this is where are we now anyway in the timeline? Was it October 2000? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
October 2000. So we're at the turn of the new millennium. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's exciting. Just to give everybody a heads up, if you've been listening this long, you know the deal. Mm-hmm. But the next few weeks will be non-book shows, including this one. We're gonna do it. I think we're doing another Annabase episode with K.A. Applegate, and then another fan fiction episode, and there'll be some more Patreon stuff along those lines too. So we got a little bit of a breather right now before we dive in to the true end game, as we keep calling it.
Yeah, this is a little chance for those of you who aren't real fans, who are just kind of listening to the books occasionally, to catch up with us, get back on track. If you're actually a fan and you actually like the podcast and we like you, then you have to listen to these too. But
you can skip. Oh, yeah, right. You have to listen to this. We will be ranking all of the books again later on in this episode. We'll also be reading some emails and some Reddit posts. But before that, I guess we just have our general look back overview discussion of this season. Yeah,
sounds good to me.
Great. I don't have much to say about it, to be honest. We could probably cut this short.
Yeah, I don't think we really need to talk about this season.
This was our longest season.
Was it? This was longer than season 2?
Can I just say it and it just sounds impressive to say it and we don't have to say if it's
season
true
3.
or not?
It would have been season 3. I don't know. It's close. 3 and 4 are both long.
And remember, we also had, for instance, The Weakness was a 2-part episode.
Oh, that's true. That's true. The Weakness was...
That's long.
So this is our longest season. The books here started getting a little bit, you might say sporadic. One of the big things that I think defines this season, of course, is our friend Ellen Jarrow, right?
Oh, Ellen Jarrow. Yeah.
Oh, Ellen Jarrow, who for the back half of the season was doing every other book. One thing that I did notice when I started looking at the ghostwriters for this season, so when you look at the non-Ellen Jarrow ghostwriters here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them who wrote a single book and no others.
Okay.
We have, 1, 2 of them who had written books before, came back for this season, wrote their worst book, and then never wrote another book. Uh,
Hmm.
and then there's two that have never written a book before, but are going to come back and define the end game. I do think that it's very funny how many of these books are like one shots or like worst and last books.
Yeah, the thing is, it's so hard to know because I mean, the funny reading of that is that it was so bad that they quit or got fired.
Hmm.
But the reality is, did Scholastic or Kay Applegate even think those books were bad? Like we think
Hmm.
they're bad, but were they poorly received? Did they sell well? I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know what they
no
perceive
idea.
of them.
I mean, what do you think the ghostwriter thought of? Do you think that the ghostwriters wrote it and were either like, "I hate this, I'm done," or they were like, I don't know how good it is, but I had a miserable time writing it," and then left?
Well, not remembering specifics or looking at specific book examples, I think probably most of them were frustrated by the experience of, I'm guessing, not having much time to write the book,
Hmm.
having to stick to an outline that probably didn't make much sense or was missing key components or was rushed and weird.
Hmm.
But also at the end of the day, they might have just been like, I don't know, they paid me $200 to write a monthly kids book. Like, did they even, how many of these ghostwriters really gave a shit? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, so okay, so the ones who had written other books before, there was Elise Donner who did 46, the one with Axe and the Nuke, and her book before was 30, the one with Marco and his mom on the cliff, um,
Okay.
which I think is a pretty dramatic decline in quality, I would personally say. Um,
Yeah. And that's a long period, too, in between.
Yeah, and then the other one was Laura Batjani Weiss, who did the Buff-a-Human book, which I
Mhm.
didn't like, but you thought was pretty good. But she had also done 27 and 31. Those were the first Drode book and the book with like Jake and Tom on vacation.
Mm.
Um, which
Yeah.
maybe you wouldn't agree that 39 is her worst book. Maybe you thought the Drode book was on the whole worse, but
Uh, I think the Drode book on the whole was maybe more like boring to me.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't, other than the Drode, it doesn't stick out in my memory because I just don't care about what was the Pemelite ship and all that crap. I don't care.
Mhm.
But the other book, the second book's definitely better.
Yeah. Now all of the four one shot art authors were the Nartek
Hmm.
37 with
Yeah.
911, the Gay
Hmm.
Andalites, and the Helmicrons. So, like, I like the Gay Andalites, but maybe you can see a little bit of a pattern on these one shot authors.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is our second season with Ghostwriters, right? I don't think we actually started any until season 3.
No, yeah, season 3 is where we started.
And yeah, it does seem like this is one of those things where I'm just sitting here floundering and speculating about what happened, but
Hmm.
Ellen Jarrow really was the anchor of this season,
Yes.
both in, in terms of quality and consistency. I wonder if she almost feels like a secondary showrunner. It almost feels like they were grooming her to take over the job for KA if she was going to leave and do something else. Uh, but which maybe, maybe should have happened. Maybe I would have liked that. I don't know.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I
I
mean,
love
in
Ellen
terms of
Jarrow.
Ellen Joe, as you said, she very much defines the latter half of this season. She is not coming back. So, like,
Right,
we've
she's
gotten
done.
our Ellen Jarrow, which I do think that's kind of interesting that she's here kind of holding it together, and then as we move into the end game, it's like, all right, that's enough of that.
It doesn't matter how much good you put out into the world, how hard you try, how many positive things you're responsible for. You write one shitty Civil War beaver book, it all goes out the window.
All
you
goes out
know,
the window.
you're only
I
as good as your last hit or whatever, right?
Well, just think of Ellen Jarrow as like she's not the one to write the story. She's the one to give you a bunch of one shots to keep it together, right? Like when you don't have a story and you're not doing anything and the whole thing could just spiral out of control. She steps up to the plate. She puts in some good work. She keeps it moving.
Well, she is, and maybe this is where we transition a little to the actual content of this
Hmm.
season. I would say in my mind, she's responsible for a few key aspects of the series at this point
Hmm.
that just simply wouldn't exist. I guess the two I'm thinking of are the same one, which are Taylor and Tobias's sort of PTSD that he has.
Hmm.
Which I mean, what I'm trying to think of something else that she pushed for consistently, or that she kind of molded in a different way in terms of the characters. But I don't know. Those are the big ones to me. Is really the Tobias stuff,
Yeah, those are the big ones.
but
I
they
mean,
feel
let's see.
significant.
Yeah, they do feel significant, and I do think that's her biggest push. Although, um, I do think that 41 feels. It's so hard for me to parse out what about 41 feels impactful as distinct from Megamorphs because they're so similar and there's so much overlap. But she did do that, and that
Mm.
is responsible for like some of Jake's characterization and like Jake and Cassie stuff that feels pretty
Yeah,
relevant.
in general, it feels like she is more interested in getting into the psyches of these kids. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I think then the average ghost. I'm not sure that that's true of her relative to Kay Applegate, but I do think that's definitely true relative to the average ghostwriter.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Sure. Kay is, yeah, used to do that too when she wrote books.
Yeah, back when she
um,
did that. But they're on the same page about that sort of thing, even if,
and she
yeah.
did the Revelation, which is like, I think we can safely say most important plot book of this entire season.
Yeah, I think that's pretty safe.
Has to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing comes
It's
close, honestly.
honestly more important than the Elamist Chronicles. You could just
Yeah,
read
it
You
is.
could just skip Elamist Chronicles and be like,
Fully.
there's an Elamist, get over it.
That's right. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure a lot of that was Ka's outline, but
Hmm.
she's there. She was the one they picked to do it, to move that. Well, but again, did they pick her, or was it just, oh, this month happened to be you? You got your assignment. Here you go.
I'd like to think they picked her. I'd like to think that they have her in here consistently writing books, and actually coming back all like unlike all these other people who won't work with them ever again. And they're like, okay, I've got an important book. We better give it to this lady.
Yeah, and that seems like the takeaway maybe is that maybe they were having trouble keeping ghostwriters because the writing conditions were so annoying.
Hmm.
And and Ellen Jarrow was the only person who liked Animorphs enough that she was willing to put up with it. Or I don't know, maybe she had done, because she had kind of done it before too. I don't know, maybe she just worked better within that system and just was able to roll with the punches better. Again, we're just really speculating. I don't know, maybe it was a dream to work on an Animorphs book, but it seems like it was. I'm sure it wasn't like, because I imagine that the editors were not extremely strict in terms of what they would accept.
Hmm.
I mean, we've read the books, so I don't think they were like, no, write it again, and it sucked for that reason. It was probably just a little bit stressful to have to hit a deadline and not really know what the hell you were talking about, and maybe you weren't
Yeah.
sure where the book was going. Maybe you were asking questions like, so what is going to happen to Marco's dad? And they're just like, oh, how am
Yeah.
I supposed to write that then?
Can I flesh out this Nora thing? Well, I don't know what we're gonna do with that yet. Okay, we'll give her a chapter. Yeah, yeah. We've kind of said this before, but it does, little bits and pieces that we've seen from interviews and just like little quirks of the writing. It really does feel like they got the shittiest outline ever. They're scrambling for time. They might have had last minute deadline changes. It does not feel like a great working environment. And obviously this is all speculation, but we're pretty much Animorphs experts at this point, and
We are.
we have really good intuitions. We're very intelligent.
We are.
We see things that others don't.
We
So
do.
you can trust our take on this. Like
You can.
if we get later interviews from ghostwriters or
We will.
wherever from other podcasts and such, then you can rest assured that if they contradict us, they're lying.
They are. So So this season,
Yeah, about this season.
it honestly, I almost feel like in my head, the season doesn't really kick off until the Ellen Jarrow book 41, which is there's 5 books before that,
Mhm.
or 6 books, plus Megamorphs. There's a lot. I kind of feel like that dividing line, once she starts writing every other book, it just sort of gives the overall season more of a cohesive feel to it,
Mhm.
even though in some ways it's like it's not cohesive because every other book is someone else, whatever. But the like first chunk to me almost feels like a holdover from season 2, or a preamble to season, or sorry, from season 3, I mean, or a
Mhm.
preamble to season 4. Like it feels very separate in my mind, and I remembered distinctly once Ellen Jarrow started writing, even when we'll get to our rankings, but almost like every other book that she didn't write just wasn't good.
Mhm.
I was feeling pretty positive about the season overall. Just like it was good enough for me to have like, not a great book. Oh, good book I really like. This book's not that good. Oh, this one I really like. Uh, so there was something fun about that. I thought there were some creative ideas
Mhm.
in a lot of those stories. Biggest criticism maybe overall of the season is what we already said, or indicated, by the fact that the Revelation is the only important plot book. This is got to be
Yeah.
also more, even maybe more so than season 3, but maybe you can remind me differently. The most skippable season. I mean, there's
Mhm.
almost no, so many books are just don't matter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, easily, easily. There's a lot more in season 3 that is fairly important. Um, and there's also a lot more books that are just, like, good even if they aren't super important. Um, yeah, I think that's interesting what you're saying because I does seem it does seem like you're right. It almost feels like the season kicks off with Megamorphs and then the Ellen Jarrow books. But if I
Right.
look at the non Ellen Jarrow books in there, the like post that, like I say, okay, let's start it
Mhm.
at Megamorphs and 41, move forward. The non Ellen Jarrow books, there's the Axe thing, which is post Revelation. But then there's only two others. There's Cassie in Australia, and there's Helmacrons, and both of those just kind of feel like, I don't know, more junk. They would fit in perfectly fine with, Buff a Human and 9/11 and Nartek. Like, here's some stuff that we did. So it almost feels like there's two seasons here. There's Ellen Jarrow plus K.A. Applegate, and then there's some filler. And the filler is mostly front loaded, but, like, yeah.
Yeah. And filler is a loaded word. Maybe we've talked about this on the show already, but
Mhm.
to me, like filler is a derogatory term, but to me, it doesn't have to be. Like
Mhm.
some of my favorite episodes of TV are technically filler episodes.
Like The Separation.
For me, yes. For me, yes. Separation is a perfect example.
Mhm. I just
Where
can't relate to TV, I can only relate to Animorphs, so
or even you could pick out the familiar, technically, or even Megamorphs 4, right? Like both of those books
yeah.
are, they don't
Yeah.
matter
Yeah, or
technically.
40. Yeah, like, I suppose I said filler, but, like, yes, 41, what I don't fucking remember what these are called anymore,
41 is the familiar.
yeah, yeah, oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking about a different book
I'm
when you
looking at
said
the
The
list.
Familiar.
That's why I
Okay,
know.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
why I
pulled it
know.
up here. Yeah, no, I agree 100% with that. Like that, I said that there's Ellen Jarrow and there's filler, but that is technically a filler book.
Sure, right. It's, yes, by the strictest definition. The problem is you can you can have a quote unquote filler episode, and I don't know if there's different terminology for these, whatever.
Hmm.
But in my head, I don't care so much if the plot is not progressed as long as something interesting happens to the characters, or the characters change at least a little bit, or at least learn something new in some way or something. And I think you look at a Helmicron or maybe Australia is like, I don't know, even that actually does kind of try to change Cassie a little. So I give him like a little credit for that. But maybe the Helmicrons in the body book is the better example then, where it's like there's nothing new gained from this from
Hmm.
anyone's perspective. No one
Yeah.
learns anything, no one changes. We already met Helmicrons. Like there's not even a new alien. It's just whatever. Versus Megamorphs 4, where sure, technically, I don't know, all of this is undone or you changed it back. It doesn't really matter to the plot, but all the Animorphs kind of learn something about themselves and each other in a way that's interesting. And that's what I'm more
Hmm.
interested in terms of like a filler. It can be a non-plot book, but it can't just be nothing. It can't just be spinning your wheels. Like there should be something
Hmm.
for me to look at there and chew on.
Yeah, that's reasonable. And I think, reflecting on it, I think filler is not the right term for what I meant. I think, like you said, you said it felt like the season started with Ellen Jarrow, and it really does. Like whether or not the books are relevant, for the most part, the Ellen Jarrow and the K.A. Applegate books, the Elemis Chronicles, the Megamorphs, all kind of feel like part of a coherent whole, whereas the other stuff feels like fluff, right? Like they
Yeah.
feel like we had to put out a book every other or every month and not every other month, so we got some more. And
Mhm.
those a lot of those authors don't feel as, I don't know, in tune with what's being done with the rest of the books.
Yes, it
Yeah.
really does feel like they just threw in and here's something else in between, like from a different world.
Yeah.
Like the B team, you know? It's not it's not the
Yeah.
same tier. It's like when there used to be a Call of Duty game every single year,
Mhm.
and there's like two teams internally at Activision, and it literally was the shitty one or like there would be like one Call of Duty that was like, yeah, sure, whatever, it was okay, and then like the next year's one would be winning awards and stuff, and you're like, yeah, they give just as filler, they make the shitty team make something while the good team works on something better. That seems like what happened here.
Mhm. And I mean, also a lot of the one shot, like if I compare to the, I don't know, more filler or like less great books from, season 3, and I compare them to some of the one shots here, it still feels like a divide, right? It doesn't, when I compare like the Nartek or the Garatron or the new Helmicron's book to like, oh, the cheese ship, or remember when they went to the Hork-Bajir homeworld, or when they were, Cassie goes to Australia versus they all have to go to the Arctic. Something does feel different, and it might just be that they're worse, but it does like it could just be a quality drop off. But they do feel distinct to me. Like I said, it almost feels like there's two seasons here going side by side and interspersing.
I mean, it's funny that we're like, it's almost like there's two seasons, as if we didn't make up the season divides. Boy,
But
they
I still
really.
think the season divide works. Like I think there does feel like, even though this season isn't coherent, like the two different incoherent parts, like I don't think that it, like you could say, well, what if you just extended season 3, or like what if you just, started around book 28 or 30 or something, and then started getting into the 30s as your like flop era. It does feel a little bit different looking at like 34 or versus, 37. I don't know. Maybe I just made that up in my head.
Yeah, you've convinced yourself of
Yeah,
it.
I've convinced myself. That's possible.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe 36 through 40 should have been a mini season, and then and or ending with Megamorphs. Then we take a break, and then the familiar wouldn't feel so redundant.
That's true. That's true. Wouldn't.
But hey, that's how it was in real life, so we stuck to that one. I mean, there's just it is remarkable how I'm looking at these books, and again, there's a lot of them from the last season, but
Hmm.
I don't know how much I have to say. Individually, there's a lot of things to say, but as a whole, looking at them all together, other than the Ellen Jarrow stuff that we've covered, I don't really know what the overall what are the themes of this section of books? What changed here? What was
Mhm.
introduced that we didn't know before? Or we like to talk about sometimes which characters do we oh this was the season I liked Cassie a lot more, or I felt like, oh, Rachel went on a weird thing. But this one was kind of just, yeah, they were all sort of there. They all did their thing more or less.
I
Some books
yeah.
more than others.
I do think that the characters started falling apart here. Like I think Cassie was particularly weak this season. Like even in the book, she wasn't there. She occasionally would get a really good line, but then she would sometimes get lines that just seemed really out of character, and neither of her books really like did enough with her. I thought like I get why the Buff a Human book is hers, but it's still kind of like I don't know. It didn't really explore much. Um, Marco had
Mhm.
this whole Nora plot that could have been great, and every time they go there, it's really good. I love all of the like one-off chapters with Marco's home life, but then that's kind of just it doesn't get that deep into it before. I mean, I love the conclusion to it too. I love Marco being a little psychopath, but yeah, I mean, we don't get the depth we need in that, and Marco's resolution with his mother also feels kind of rushed. Um, Rachel, like they try to do the whole thing where it's like, oh, she wants to be in charge, but that's a bad book, and then it's not in book 42, and it's not really happening. That it occasionally comes up in the background of other books, but it's not, a huge thing. Megamorphs and Ellen Jarrow start doing a Jake thing, right? Like they start
Yeah.
doing Jake's like it's really wearing on him that he's got this crushing weight of authority. There's stuff going on with his feelings for Cassie and how that plays into his leadership and that whole dream and all that stuff. Um and that's all really interesting, but then like do you see that in the background in books 42, 43, 44, 40? Not really, no. You don't really see that in the background anywhere, and it's certainly not in the Civil War book. So,
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like there's some interesting stuff. I think the most fleshed out are going to be Tobias and Axe cuz Tobias gets a whole new right.
Yeah.
Ellen Jarrow's like I've got my pet plot, so I'm going to flesh that out, and that's something. And then Axe really starts getting some kind of a plot, right? Like Axe's relationship to the Animorphs versus his Andalite people starts becoming like a thing. Like before when I was talking about that character arc, you were like, "Sounds like you're making that up," and I mostly was because I knew that they were going to do it later. But yeah, most of the characters, it's all just kind of falling apart when I go through it point by point.
I would say it's not so much that the characters act unlike themselves,
Hmm.
as much as it is that they just don't do anything.
Yeah.
Either their tendencies are muted, or they're just in the background, or it's just not focused on, and they just kind of all act like, Power Rangers. they're just
Hmm.
they're there to be a part of the Voltron and turn into a bear or whatever it is you need.
Yeah, I mean,
And
maybe you said they don't act like, or it's not that they don't act like themselves. It's almost like the problem is that all they do is act like themselves, right? It's like,
mm,
here's Rachel, she's crazy. And it's like,
right. Well,
does
yeah,
it
it's a
matter that she
very
had this whole struggle,
a
right?
very one-dimensional
Yeah.
take on themselves. Marco makes a joke, of
Yeah.
course.
Like go back to Marco's whole arc where he wants to quit the Animorphs at the very, very beginning before he realizes that his mom
Mm,
is a controller. You know, Marco's like most traumatic moment pre-book 5 is in when he gets his tail bit off as a dolphin and he thinks he's going to drown at sea like his mom in Cassie's book, right? And that moment is important to Marco in his next book. It's important as part of that progression, and like here you don't when a character gets something that's kind of working for their plot, it's usually because it's in their book. And again, part of it's because you got these one-shot authors coming in and it's just like, where am I supposed to be in this plot? Where am what's the I don't know. Here's a story. I just got to get it out.
yeah, I think what you said before though was accurate. I think maybe another one of the most significant things in this season is just generally the development of the Andalites. as a
Hmm.
species. I mean, we get 2 books with Andalites.
Hmm.
3 if you count Elemist Chronicles.
That's true. We do.
4 if you count the Familiar.
I don't know that I count the familiar.
Well, if you count it, it's 4. um but yeah, Axe is probably the winner of this season, which maybe he deserves it. I don't know, maybe he's had it coming. there hasn't
Hmm.
He hasn't always had the most character development. I mean, him and Tobias, they don't have as many books, so I guess it's kind of nice in a way that they stand
Hmm.
out. At the I wish it were not at the expense of all the other characters there are, but yeah, his whole arc of figuring out who he is and what's the deal with Andalites, and also just actually getting to hear from Andalites from the home world and
Hmm.
what they think of the whole situation. That does work to flesh out the world and makes this right now the whole conflict as it stands. We have come a long way from season 1
Hmm.
where everything really felt contained, and it was all about Visser 3, the Yerk pool, Chapman, etc. And that slowly started to branch out, but I feel like this season it's really exploded, not least of which with the Elemist Chronicles. I mean, we already had Krayak stuff last season, but just you're talking to the Andalites, you're going to Australia, you're going
Hmm.
international. It does feel more like, oh, this is I'm all but almost to its detriment, I think,
Yeah.
where I am losing track of this intimate story about these 6 specific characters that I care about, and it's starting to feel more like a large scale sprawling intergalactic war that is much harder for me to understand or sympathize with.
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree. And it's not like it's not it's not because it's doing that exactly
mhm.
for me, but it's like, as you said, we had Chapman, right? We had Visser 3, we had Tom. And like, when was the last time you cared about what Tom's Yerk was doing? Like, you get like one or two chapters where Jake worries about Tom being in his house, but then it doesn't matter. We Chapman showed up in book 46 to be, unnamed guy number 4, except he's named Chapman in this one. He doesn't matter anymore. Visser 3 or 1, he'll occasionally show up to be a weird guy, but a lot of the times he's just not around. It does feel like, especially for the antagonists, like we're losing sight of the characters as we get into this broader conflict, which doesn't have to happen, right? You can get into this much bigger, broader conflict and still, have like Chapman everywhere and do deeper character studies and Tom everywhere, and that can elevate it even. You can tie those greater stakes to the like smaller interpersonal stakes, but that hasn't really been happening. I think we've lost sight of that to some degree here.
Yeah, yeah. It's not that they're making it bigger; it's that they're also not focusing on the smaller
Yeah,
aspects of it.
they're not taking the stuff that made the smaller aspects good with them as they make it bigger.
Yeah, and it's yeah, and yet they still have these small stories, but it's just
Mhm.
that they're not important. So it's like whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's funny because there's a point in the season in the midst of the Elangeros where, like I said, I was pretty positive on this season
Mhm.
overall. Even like I was even when there were books that weren't that good, I was having a good time. And then I think it really was the Beaver book that broke me. That
That's
was,
because you lost
yeah,
faith in your hero.
yeah. And it was just like, yeah, I guess. And now I'm looking back at everything, and I just have to be honest that it's mostly rough. It's just very inconsistent. Like, again, we'll get to the rankings probably pretty soon, but you almost get whiplash from the change in quality book to book. It's
Mhm.
it's not good.
Yeah,
um,
100%. And you're saying before this is the most skippable season, and like that maps onto my experience as a
mm,
kid. I've talked about
yeah,
the Animorphs fatigue, but it is like by the back half of this season, like that's where I started to just be like, I barely remember some of these books. I don't remember which is which, even though I read them as a kid. Even though every time I do a reread, I don't actually skip them. I do read them all. Uh, I still am just like, I don't know. It's not in my memory. There's a lot of books this season that I have not read that much because, as a kid, you're waiting for the next Animorphs book to come out, and you're like, oh, I should go reread the last one. Oh, I should go reread my favorite one from 3 books ago over and over again. But a lot of these books are just like, yep, I read it once when I got it, and once every time I did a reread, and that was it. So,
Yeah, you got all you needed to get out of that.
yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely, if I was making my machete cut of Animorphs, there's some books in here that I'd be like, yeah, no, you don't need to read that. Just don't worry about that. Skip it. It's fine. I promise. It's fine. I think now we have some emails with a lot of stuff in them that are gonna refer back to books from this season.
Hmm.
So I think we'll talk more about this season, what's coming up next as we go on. But maybe now we kind of break and do our tier rankings, unless you have some other specific talking
Sure.
points.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to move on to tier rankings or emails or whatever we want to do here. So.
Yeah, we'll stick with I never know the order, but I'll just keep the one we did last time, which was next we'll do the rankings.
Okay, I don't remember either. I have all these sections sectioned out, but I don't have any kind of order to it. So, yeah, let's do
So
some
yeah.
rankings. I gotta say, when I was doing my preliminary rankings, I kind of felt like I wasn't in a great mood. So I'm not. I'm hoping I didn't underrate these too bad. I'm gonna hear what you have to
Huh.
say first.
Interesting.
Like as I was
Interesting.
going through, I just kept being like, why do I feel so down on all of this here? Maybe it's not fair. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, for just to remind people, we are going to be going through each book from the season now, starting with 35 or 36, 35, whatever one it is.
36.
36. Giving each one, we're each going to say what we think it should be ranked at between, I guess F is the lowest. Have we ever given an F? I don't think we
We
have.
we haven't quite given F. We have individually given Fs to books,
Oh,
but
okay.
we've always settled on a D.
Right. So there's from D to S is the top, right?
Mhm.
Japanese video game and anime ranking system
You
there.
know how we love anime.
I don't know if it's really anime. It feels like just video games, but whatever.
You're probably
I don't
right.
know. Anyway, and yes, we're going to try to come to a compromise. So we will have one score for each book, even if we disagree. We're going to figure that out as we go.
This will be
As
fun.
always, my disclaimer is I have not ever reread these books. So for me, part of the challenge of this is going back and trying to remember what did I think about it.
Yeah, it's
It's
great because
like
it means I can easily influence you into changing your score,
true,
push you around a
true.
little.
A lot of times, because I looked back at my previous notes for a lot of
Hmm.
these, and sometimes I would at the end actually write like this book sucked or this was good, but this part I didn't like, and that was very helpful on my part. Like, oh yeah, thank you, past me. I remember how I feel now. So yeah, we'll see, and I'm sure there are definitely some where I'm like, oh, I think this is bad, but it wasn't that bad, and you'll tell me what you think. All right. So starting with the mutation, and now I got
Yeah.
to also keep track of the writing down uh, what we decide on here. Starting with the mutation, this is book 36. This is the one in which Jake turns into a whale. Oh, this is the Nartek book,
This is the
right?
Nartek book, yes.
Right. I'm gonna try to not, if you want to hear our in-depth thoughts, you have the episodes, so I'll try not to belabor too
Hmm.
much. But I didn't like this book. I don't think it's good. Part of me feels like, maybe it's a C, but then I remember how much I don't like the Nartek and how annoying that is, and there's just a lot of shit that I don't care about, and so honestly, for me, it's a D. That's what I'm going with is D.
I thought you might end up there. I did go with a C on this one. I do think that the Nartek area is atmospheric. I don't hate they don't the existence of the Nartek doesn't hit that same pet peeve for me that it does for you of the, oh, these guys are there too type of thing. Um But yeah, this was a book that I was disappointed revisiting. I thought I was gonna like it better. I liked it better before the podcast. So yeah, I mean, I want to say C.
I'm
I'd be
okay
sad
with
to
a
give it a
C.
D, but yeah,
No, it's fine. I can live with
okay.
the C. It's
I was gonna
fine.
say I could live with the D too. I'd be sad,
Yeah,
but it's not
I'm not like
wrong.
it's not like I mean, it sucks. It's not the worst thing ever written. It's like there's some parts that are at least, huh? It's I guess I can just say it's interesting to read.
Yeah, I mean,
it's,
I guess
it's
here's
not
part of the
boring.
problem is that part of the reason that I don't want to give it a D is that it is, better than a lot of books in this season, but I do go back and kind of look like, oh, we gave book 2. We both solidly gave book 2 where Rachel's a cat and sneaking around in Chapman's house a C. Is this book really
Mm.
on par with that one?
But
Is it
again, I mean,
really?
different. This is different for you than me because again,
Mhm.
obviously you have read them all before. But
Mhm.
I definitely feel like there is a sliding scale. That's not really. I don't know if that's the right term. Maybe it is. My standards have shifted by this point. Like,
So you might have
and
to redo your old.
yeah, we have said like, oh, if this book was in season 3 or whatever, or season 1, we might have liked it more because it's like you're allowed to have a filler, and we're still interested in
Hmm.
like, oh, an animal that we haven't seen before. That's still fun. Whereas
That's
at this point,
true.
it's like you gotta. If you're not bringing your A game, what are you doing? Like this, just there's no excuse
Yeah.
anymore.
So like it's less like, oh well, this book is, it's less like we're lowering our standards and more like you have to take it in context here. It's worse to be
Yeah,
bad now, or it's worse to be bad in the same way. Or
yeah.
or maybe I shouldn't even say that doing the same thing now is bad when it wasn't bad then.
Yes, like
Yeah.
again, I'm always thinking of TV because that's the analogy with like that has seasons and
Hmm.
multiple individual episodes, but it's like, if you watch like a season 1 episode of The Simpsons compared to like season 7, it kind of sucks, but if you're like thinking about it when The Simpsons was new and they were figuring out what they were and there wasn't really another show like that on TV, you're like, "Oh, like this isn't a bad episode, like it's okay." And
Yeah,
that's where I
you're
feel like, in season 1 of Animorphs, it was like they were still figuring it out. I give them more slack.
you're kind of talking me into wanting this to be a D. Not gonna lie.
And I'm not even trying. I'm not even,
Yeah.
I'm just.
Well, maybe it's a D.
All right, let's fuck it. It's a D. If that's
All right. All right. Well, that's that one.
fuck off, Nartex. Off to a
Fuck
good
off,
start.
Nartek.
Next book is number 37, The Weakness.
The weakness.
One of the longest we
Yeah.
ever spent talking about a mainline numbered book.
Oh God, the weakness.
Our only two-parter.
Our only two-parter.
Can I be honest with you? I will say this.
Uh huh.
Just overall for my rankings when I did my preliminary ones here,
Hmm.
I didn't really I wasn't really thinking about Fs.
Hmm.
I wonder if you have Fs cuz I didn't my lowest ranking was a D, but I don't know. We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'll tell
yeah.
you. I was thinking about Fs, but I was hesitant because we never did them. I have several D/Fs because I wasn't
Mm,
sure.
yeah. Well, this is the book with the Garrotron.
Yes. Garrotron, 9/11, cheetahs,
A leopard. Yeah, right. Cheetah. Sorry, I said
Jake's
leopard.
gone, and
Right, Jake is gone and they all fuck everything up. This is
yeah.
one of the worst, I think, examples of characters just doing dumb shit that doesn't make sense in regards with who they are and just everyone. Like I don't know the whole concept of Rachel trying to be the leader and Jake being gone and them all just immediately being like, let's go fuck up Visser 3. It was
Hmm.
all so haphazard and sloppy. The Garantron is stupid. The cheetah thing is not executed well. This is another straight D for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is the book that made me consider whether I want to put Fs in here.
Wow.
Cause yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's not as outright boring as 35 was, but like, man, it's not good. It's not good. Oh man, it's not good. I
But can
would
we
be willing to
say
go down to F on this. If you had said this was an F, I would just snap to an F.
here's my thing, I think.
Hmm.
None of these are worse than the Helmicron book.
Well, see, here's the problem: is that the original Helmicron book has one section. The original Helmicron book, not the new one, has like one like as a book, it is far more incoherent and bad. And you did give it an F. Um,
Yeah, right,
but
right.
like it's got one part in it that I absolutely love and is like, very special, and I think it's great, and I'll always love the existence of the Helmicron book, and that's why I couldn't personally give it an F, but like I don't feel that way about the Garrotron. I don't, as much as I think it's really funny that the Animorphs did 9/11, I don't like that's not going to elevate it for me the way that the Helmicrons did. I can't give this that.
Yeah, I think that's my bar is like it's still better than that in my head. And like I think the concept of Jake's away and now Rachel's taking over has potential. So I
Yeah,
don't there's at least a glimmer of an interesting idea in there that for me is enough to keep it from just being flat out F.
it's so fucking sad because there is a glimmer of an idea there that exists before that book and after that book, but in that book, it doesn't really progress that. It's not interesting. The way in which Rachel and the rest of the Animorphs deal with it is just not. It's just. I do
Eh,
kind of want to give it an F
all right.
personally.
All right,
I,
let's
I
give it
could
an
give it a
F.
D if you want to give it a D just because you don't want to do the Helmicrons. But I do get the feeling that if you're using the Helmicrons as your benchmark, nothing's getting a D probably,
An F, you mean?
or an F. Yes, that's what I mean.
I mean, it's possible with maybe there may be exceptions. That's my only thing is I'm like, I would be fine if they both had an F, but I can't. I feel like it's wrong for if we look back at our rankings at the end of this and say this book is lower than that one. Like, I just don't think that's right.
See, the problem. This is the problem with the compromises. No one's going to be happy.
Yeah. Well, maybe I just need to not think about other seasons. Like
Well,
maybe I just
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, here's what we'll do. I'll go back and I'll also plot our individual scores on books if we couldn't agree, and then
yeah. I thought you
and
were
then
gonna do
then we
that
can
anyway.
have our personal rankings too that
Yeah,
we can be
whatever.
happy with.
But I'm like not. If this was an F, I'd like. Yeah, I'd be. It's fine. I don't care.
I mean,
I
okay, so
mean,
here's
the
here's the
Garrotron is
question.
funny.
Here's the question. Before we even get to the other books, do you have a book you like less than this one?
This season,
Yeah, yeah, this season.
I think I do. Yes.
Okay, I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. So it's close. If you want to give it a D, I'm okay with a D.
In fact, I might have two I like less than this book. Yeah, fine. Let's just call it a D for now. Let's call it a D. Stay on the same.
Okay,
Usually, I feel like when there's a difference of opinion, we tend to go with the higher person.
that's fair. Yeah, that's reasonable.
It's just that in
Yeah,
this case, we
I
both
just,
think it sucks. So
yeah, and I just wanted to really have that conversation now because I was afraid that if we don't give this an F, we're giving nothing an F. So I wanted to make sure that we, make that decision. But I guess we still have opportunities. So.
All right. Well, let's move on to. I think okay,
Yeah.
a little more of an uptick here. The
Hmm.
Arrival. This is when is this the Suicide Squad Animorphs?
Yeah, the Andalites come for the Suicide Squad.
Andalites.
Axe kind
Sorry.
of has a girlfriend. There's, yeah,
Yeah,
another quantum virus.
I thought there's some good stuff in this. You get to see Axe dealing with Andalites, kind of for the first time directly. I think this is a B. I think this is a good one.
Hmm. I remember when we reviewed this, and I think I liked this book back then a lot more than you did. I gave this one an A. I
Wow.
do. I quite like all of the Axe and Estrid stuff. I enjoy all of the Andalites. I think that at some point you were just sitting there like, there's too many Andalites, and it's getting weird, and you should have done it more straightforward. And I get that, but like having read it, I was like, no, I love all these Andalites, and I love this plot. Yeah, I went with an A for it.
So here's another thing about this season
Mhm.
that I'll say.
Mhm.
I also, in my preliminary rankings, which could change, I also didn't give anything an S.
Interesting. I did give one thing an S. You can probably guess what it would be.
I could
But
probably guess that, yes.
yeah.
But so like this being an A makes me think that some of my A's should be S's. If that's the case,
Mm.
Maybe
See, I mean, here's
I'm
the
ranking
thing.
more harshly or something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that's true because I only have one other A coming up.
Oh
So
wow.
I think it's just a difference of opinion because I
Hmm.
remember when we reviewed this book, I got the impression that I liked it a lot more than you did.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
Well,
um,
I think B is appropriate in this case. If you liked it a lot more than I did, like B is still good. You know what I mean?
yeah, I don't hate giving it a B. Like I do think I like this book better than my AB benchmark of book 33, but not by a lot. It's not up there with like book 4 or whatever that we gave an A, which I would consider to be one of the best A's. Um yeah, I'm okay with the B. We can do a B.
Good. As long as you're okay with it, then it's fine.
I think in the past I've kind of gotten you to come around, and I think maybe this season you're going to get me to come around more. Because partially just because like I don't have as strong a feeling on most of these books because I didn't reread them as much. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's see. Next is The Hidden,
hmm
number 39. This is
hmm
oh yes. Okay. Well, here's the one I don't think I'll get you to come around on.
well,
This
we
is
might compromise on this.
the infamous Buffa Human
The Buffa
book.
human.
I don't think any more need to be said than that. There's a buffalo that can morph
It's all
and it
there is.
morphs into a human. Yeah, that is pretty much all there is. I think I pretty much said as much in the episode when we did this. To me, this is a B. I think it is fun. It is not it has a lot of problems for sure. It's flawed, but like I enjoyed reading it. I think it has some cool weird ideas. I'm guessing we're gonna land on a C. I don't know if you went as low as a D, but
hmm
you'll
I
tell me.
did I did go as low as a D. I found this
Wow.
book very, very boring and like banging my head against a wall to reread. Um, I think that is partially because of a reread.
Mhm.
It's not on that DF you know, situation because of the fact that hey, it does have the Buffy human. It does have Aunt Cassie. These are great things to exist. Those are on the level of Helmacrons where they can elevate the book because I want them to exist. Um, but yeah, I mean, for me, it's just, once you get over the fact that they're there and you have to go back and spend a week on rereading it and thinking about it, yeah, oh man, I don't like it.
I'm fine with giving this one a C because I do feel like I personally like it, but I'm
Mhm.
not gonna like I get it. I mean I don't think a D. I think that's too harsh, but I think a C is appropriate.
That's fair. We
Okay,
can go with a C. We'll
great,
compromise on a C.
great. Next up is number 40, The Other,
hmm
which is the one where Marco is a B. Oh, this is the one with the gay
Gay
Andalites.
Andalites, yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering. I think we may have a disagreement on this one
hmm
because I or not. I'm not sure because I can't remember anything about.
hmm
I don't really listen to your opinions. I thought this one was just okay. I have too many. It goes honestly goes back to my Nartek issue where there's too many
hmm
things that annoy me about these Animorphs have just been, sorry, Andalites have just been hanging out here the whole time doing nothing. Like it just feels like a late game idea that doesn't really mesh with the rest of the series. Some of the ideas are fun and interesting, and it's more Andalite stuff, which is fun. Like I
hmm
don't hate it, but to me it's a C.
Yeah, my inclination is to give it a B. Um, I do really like this book just in general. I don't have your issue. I've said that already with the Nartek. Um, I I love the existence of the weird gay disabled Andalites with Andalite HIV and all that. Like that's really fun to me that that exists. And I
That's
do
fun that Andalites have AIDS.
and honestly, I love that Axe is a bigot. I think that we don't see enough of the like conservative traditionalist Andalite side, and I love that it takes a character that you love and think is goofy, and you have to kind of like come to terms with the fact that like no, he's still very in this kind of culture. All of that is great. This is a book that I did not like as much on the reread because I was focusing more on the storytelling and less on the, oh yeah, there's the idea. And yeah, I mean, it is it is a little sloppy. It doesn't actually show the gay Andalites talking or working with them enough. I could go down to a C. I want to give it a B. I could go down to a C.
It's funny because I'm also like I could give you this as a B too. I don't really feel
Yeah,
that
it's
strongly about it. Yeah, I
I've
like Axe being a bigot too. I just wish that was
yeah.
seated more
I think it
earlier and
probably is
later.
a C. I think right now, I think when I finished the book, I was more down on it than I am now. I think I'm sort of
You
reverting to
once
my
again,
old opinions.
yes, enough time has passed that you're like, your
Yeah,
brain has washed away the hurt.
yeah. I think it probably. I'm willing. We can do a C.
All right. Before I said we usually go for the person who liked it more. I think we've almost every time we've compromised to the lower end, but that's
Well,
fine.
maybe this season is. Hmm.
Yeah, maybe that's just representative of where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're at Megamorphs 4, Back to Before.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's one.
this one I really like. Uh, people know, people
Mm-hmm.
have heard me say that I am a sucker for these types of stories. This is when they go back to the past or before, as some might say,
Mm-hmm.
and redo it. And of course, this book is getting the Drode bump.
Mm-hmm.
So for
Gotta
me,
get the drug bump.
I do think this is an A.
Yeah, I gave this one an A too. I'm
All
on
right.
board with you. I think this book surprised me rereading it that how good it was. Yeah, I like it.
I,
It doesn't quite stick the landing. It doesn't quite make it into S territory, but it's good and it's certainly good enough for an A.
so this is that our first just unambiguous agreement?
Yeah, I think it might be.
That's pretty good. Well, some of the other disagreements were just degrees of how much we don't like it, but
Right, yeah.
but that's nice. Megamorphs is
Hmm.
feeling like you're kicking off its own season because it's actually like it feels like this book is what they were trying to do.
Hmm.
Like some of the other books, even that we like more, feel like maybe they failed at the execution.
Yeah, hey, this is one of those books where I read it and I'm like, oh my god, finally, do I have an S again? Oh no, it's just the other books were bad. This is an A.
Yeah, it's hard to make that distinction sometimes. Which brings us to the next book, which is our Ellen's Back
Ellen's back.
with the Familiar. This is when Jake becomes old and goes to a crazy future world.
Hmm.
And I do love this book. This is honestly, for me, one of the ones that's very close to being an S, just in
Hmm.
terms of like kind of just overlooking. Like there are flaws perhaps in some of the writing and storytelling, but in just my personal enjoyment of reading it, I think it is an S. But like bringing it back down to reality, and there are some passages that are just kind of weird, or there's like the parts about the I don't know. There's like elements that don't really connect or make sense in a way that you want them to. But I'm still saying it's an A. I enjoyed both this and Megamorphs 4 very much, even though back to back they are like the same book.
Yeah, I gave this book a B. I definitely don't like it as much as Megamorphs 4. Um I liked it better than I thought I would on the reread. On the reread, I assumed going in that I was going to give it like a D or maybe a C, but no,
Wow.
I think it's a really mostly because like as a kid I just kind of forgot it because it wasn't relevant. But actually reading the story, I was like, oh yeah, no, I like the story. I like the characters. It's all fun. I like the landscapes. Um, and my primary problems are, in the same way that you don't like it when the thing has always been there, I don't like it when, it's just oh, it
It's all
was
a
all a
dream.
dream. Oh, it was back in time and it doesn't matter and it didn't affect the characters and it doesn't affect the timeline. Like that
Mhm.
really irks me. And I also didn't like that some of the messaging and theming felt kind of at
Right.
odds with more general things that I like in Animorphs. Like it wasn't even that it was at odds with what I think, it was that it was at odds with some of my favorite things that the series does.
Right.
Um,
I do
so
remember
yeah,
that
for
now.
me, I went with a B on this one.
You might notice that the books that I tend to like more are the ones I wrote song parodies for. I don't know if that makes them seem better in my mind, or if I wrote those because I like the book more. I don't know. Chicken and the egg. I do get what you're saying. I do think that the sort of the politics of this one maybe are the biggest knock against it, although I didn't even remember that until you brought it up.
Hmm.
For me, it was the I don't know, just the weird offshoot where he talks to the little kids and there's a
Hmm.
tree, and I'm just kind of like, what is this now? It kind of
Hmm.
falls apart a little bit towards the end. I mean, I could fight for an A on this. A B wouldn't break my heart either. I don't know. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I do love terrorist Cassie and I do love Jake's response to terrorist Cassie. I just wish it was to like her personally and not the idea of a terrorist.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a
I
Drode in
don't
this
know.
book? No,
There's
there's no
no Drode
Drode.
in this
So
book.
it
There's
doesn't. If there was a
there's a weird
Drode,
there's a
yeah,
weird supernatural alien Elemis type thing that is unnamed and will never come back.
I like to think it was Drode Junior,
Drode Jr., the Drode's
DJ,
brother.
the Grode.
The the
Uh,
Grode.
yeah,
You know what? If
fine.
it's the Grode, maybe I do like the book now.
Yeah, it gets the Grode bump. If it was the Drode, I would fight for my A. But and maybe there is something to also say that it did come right after Megamorphs, and maybe they should have been more conscious of that. And it does kind of feel like we just did this. So I can go down to a B.
All right, B sounds fine.
All right. Okay.
This next one.
Even though it hurts me a little bit. Next up is The Journey.
The Helmicrons in Marco's body.
That's right. Helmicrons get into Marco. They got to go in there to get him out. This is one of those ones that I wrote down a D, but now I'm saying, yeah, this could be an F.
I also had D/F for this.
So yeah, if you were worried about, yeah, we can make this an F. It sucks. I hate it.
Okay, I'm down for it.
There's
Yeah,
really
it's
nothing in it that I like, honestly. I can't even.
yeah, I think
I
I
really
agree.
hate it.
There's yeah, I think there's nothing in it that I like.
Great. All
I
right.
like that's I guess that's the thing. I don't know that there's anything in it that I hate enough to be an F, but there's definitely nothing in it that I like. So, I'm okay with an F.
Yeah, I mean, I read this also. I remember when I was sick at the
Oh,
time, and
yeah, you were miserable.
maybe I just associated with feeling like shit.
That was
Uh,
great.
Next up is The Test.
The Test.
This
Taylor.
is Taylor returns, and they go on a taxon digging mission. Another one I wrote a song for, and another one I really like that I think we get back. Taylor comes back. We get deep into some Tobias stuff. It's a cool a story that feels like this is another example to me of a good filler,
Hmm.
but also kind of, it feels like it could be important to the larger plot as well. It's an A for me.
I had A/B for this one. Yeah, this one, it's so it's
Sounds like an A.
so close to just being an A. Like literally, it's the small details that just absolutely ruin everything good about it, but they're so small that you could just pretend that they're not
Oh,
there and ignore
the
it, you
Taylor
know?
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the
Well, that's why
Taylor
it's an A and
stuff,
not an S to me, you know?
the fact that Visser 3 is in doing the whole thing and the stupid shit with the Yerk resistance. Ugh, like
Yeah,
just take one paragraph out. I'm okay with an A. I could give this an A.
yeah, you're not wrong. There's some dumb stuff in there, but it's like, at this
Mhm.
certainly if we're going on our sliding scale for this season, it's got to be an A. I don't know if we want to do that or not, but it's we
Yeah,
decided.
I don't want to do it relative to the season. I want to do it relative to is it acceptable to be writing books like that at this point. But I mean, the
Uh,
thing is, this is exactly the book you should be writing at this point. It's just that it should be, like actually doing stuff with the Yerk resistance movement, not pulling the rug out from under you at the last second.
yeah, 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 yeah. Next is The Unexpected, number 44. Cassie goes to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't know if you'll go lower. I think we had this conversation too when we talked about this in the episode. But to me, the book is almost like this is the platonic ideal of a C in my head. This is the it's fine. There's some boring stuff in there that's not good. There's some interesting ideas too. You can skip it. You won't miss anything. You can read it. It'll be okay. It's just a C, straight across the board, middle of the road, average, whatever.
Yeah, in my heart, I want to give it a D because of its impact on me.
Its
It was,
impact on you.
yeah,
You
it
have a
has
kangaroo
historically
phobia
been
now?
my least favorite book.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it's it's better than I felt like it was. It just came in a bad moment in the series, but maybe that does lower it. But I
Mm.
also I can't help but think about the fact that the whole fucking first half is that stupid airplane shit that doesn't,
I know.
and it does still feel like a D to me. I could go up to a C, but I wouldn't love it.
um, yeah, I mean, I just don't think I really don't think it's bad. I just think it's mediocre. And to
Yeah,
me,
but
that's a C.
like you said, we're so late in the series. Like, I'm done
Yeah.
with media. I mean, that is why I hated it as a kid, right? It was like I'm done with boring, mediocre doesn't matter. Like, fucking get to it.
Then that's the question is how do we weigh on its own versus what it should be at this point? I don't know. And honestly, I think I'm more forgiving of it too because it's like sandwiched between books I like.
Mm,
So I'm kind of just
mm,
like, it's not, it'd be different if this came after the first two books and I'm like, fuck this.
yeah. I mean, listen, I'm willing to elevate it up to a C if you would like. It's just in my heart, I think it's a D.
We can give it a D to honor the, I mean, if you said it was at least at one point your least favorite book, then
Yeah. But
that
like
should
I
be
said,
reflected.
it was my least favorite book out of a whole series of books that I didn't remember much about and like had different opinions on the reread because I was speeding through it. So
Yeah.
it's less the fault of the book and more the fault of its specific position in the series. That's the straw that
Yeah.
broke the camel's back.
Well, we can take that into account. That's fine. We'll call it a D.
Sure.
All right.
I'm okay with
Next
that. I like that.
next is book 45, The Revelation.
Mhm.
The Revelation, this is the one where, as we said, it's the actually plot relevant book. Marco's dad
Yes.
finds out he's an animorph. And Visser
Yes.
1 fucking dies,
Yes.
right? In this book? Yeah.
Yep. What
Which I
happens?
which I think, to be honest with you, is the biggest reason I'm not giving this book an S, is because I really didn't like the way she went out.
Mhm.
I think we said at the time, oh, do I really like this book? Or is it just I'm starved for plot? I do think it is a really good book. And even the fact that it has, if we're taking points away
Mhm.
for a book not being plot relevant at this point, then we should give some points back when they are. So I called this one an A.
Okay, I called this one a B for like a large part, mostly the same reasons you did. I was like, yeah, I like this book. I don't know that it was on S level, but I did really really like it. Except that it rushes through. It ends the Nora plot in a good way, but after not having done it, it rushes through the Visser one. That all brought it down to a B. But you know what? You are right. I am willing to bump it up to an A just because they finally fucking got to it.
Yeah, and I mean, this was probably the most exciting I ever felt, excited
Mhm.
I ever felt during this whole season reading a book.
Yeah, that's fair.
I gotta give it credit for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
We can do an
Cool.
A then.
All right, we're almost at the end here. Next is The Deception.
Mhm.
Axe becomes a fighter pilot and almost drops a nuke on California, and they spend a lot of time on a boat.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I wrote down a C. Maybe it's a D. It's. I do think the whole nuke thing, even if they don't flesh it out well enough, I guess I at least like the idea of Axe and Jake's tension that they have with each other. It's something. I mean, the rest of the book is very bad. I don't know. Maybe it's a D. What do you think?
I gave this a D and also considered an F. Although I suspect part of the reason I considered an F is because we had just come off Destroyer Men and was not in the fucking mood for this book. But yeah, I don't know. Like the idea of tension's cool, but like it's not in the fucking book, and the rest of the Animorphs. Oh, like what are they doing? Like fuck. They're just like, oh yeah, okay, sure, X will help. Like it all sucks. The nuke thing is over in the course of like a single goddamn page. There's too much
Yeah.
listing off the names of boats.
Visser 2
Chap
sucks.
Visor 2 sucks. Chapman is finally back just so they can use the name Chapman. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
It all sucks.
Look,
I don't
you're
like
right.
it.
I think a D for deception is
That's fair.
appropriate.
That's
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
You're right. You're
Yeah.
right.
Okay, thank you
It's
for
not good.
saying I'm right.
Well, don't get used to it. Okay, and then we have number 47, The Resistance, Ellen
Beaver
Jarrow,
book.
Beaver book, Civil War, Isaiah Fitzhenry.
Yes.
I I, this can't go higher than a D. I don't think it's as bad. I don't know if it's as bad as an F. Maybe it is. I mean, literally half this book, I just didn't give a shit about.
Mhm.
I think all the Civil War sections, even when they're not that bad, they're bad, and I don't want to read them. The Trekkies, that whole thing is bad. Maybe it is an F. Maybe it's an F. This is one where I wrote D, but maybe it's an F.
Yeah, I did write it as a solid D. I don't in a vacuum, I don't hate the Civil War bits. I think the Civil War bits could be a good story if they were entirely divorced from the Animorphs and like there was no juxtaposition, there was no thematic through line. It was just its own young adult story. I think they could have been good. That's more attention than I've ever paid to them in my entire life, which is not a good sign for the book. This is the book when we first referenced it on the series. I didn't remember which one it was because it like in my brain I just kind of detached. In some way, I think this book is almost as much of a disaster from a construction standpoint as the original Helmicron's book, just because like, yeah, half of it, who gives a shit? Fuck that. Um,
Ironic that it's a disaster in its construction, since it's all about
hmm,
building a dam.
yes, that's true. A dam that they're going to create a natural
Destroy.
disaster. Yeah, with I don't know. Yeah, and then the Toby. Yeah, I don't know.
Fuck it, it's an
I could
F.
say an F. I could say an F. Yeah.
And also, I think it's like I know what Ellen Jarrow is capable of, and this is
Mm-hmm.
well below her standards. Like, so for her, this is terrible.
Yeah,
It's
that's true.
so yeah. I think we gotta. And by the way, these were The Resistance and The Journey were the two books when you asked that I liked less than the the Weakness or whatever the other one was.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So there it is. All right, which leaves us with one, The Elemist Chronicles. Um, this is, I mean, we just read it. It's about Tumen, the Elemist. You know what it
Mhm.
fucking is. I did have this one as an A. I think the holding this one back from being an S for me is just the structural stuff. Some parts are too fast and some parts are too slow. And Usually it's the parts that I want to read more about that are too fast, and the parts I'm ready to move on take too long. It just feels a little awkward in its pacing. And there are also a couple of midi-chlorian moments that I'm not crazy about.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of ideas and stuff that I really enjoy in it, but it's just not an S to me. It's an A.
Gotcha. I mean, this was an S to me. I really love basically every idea she put out in here. Like, yeah, I could see what you're saying about the pacing, although I don't mind it as much. I like the kind of split into like first life and then this like rapid transition. I like the way it gets faster and faster as he gets more and more advanced. Um but yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down to is that Kay Applegate put every fucking bonkers cosmic entity idea she had in her brain into this book, and I like basically all of them. You know, like as a kid, I loved Ketrans and I loved the crystal. I loved the games they played. Um, I love the idea of them wandering the universe. Father is fucking amazing. I love the what are they called? The Jalians and the Inner Worlders. I liked Krayak's games with him. I liked the Pemalites. I liked the time on the Andalite homeworld. Yeah, like to me, there's just too much great stuff in it, and also like I said, like if I were gonna do an Animorphs movie, my second choice is just the father shit. Like I just love it that much. So, like for me, it's an S, solidly.
Yeah, yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky.
Hmm.
I don't, because I also like, I think, I have higher standards for these Chronicles books.
Mm.
Uh, and you also liked Visser much more than I did.
Yeah, I think you only gave the Andalite Chronicles an S out of all the Chronicles. I think that was the only one you liked enough for an S.
I think that's true, although I was fine with Hork-Bajir being an S.
Yeah.
Which also I was actually curious. I maybe we should save this for right after this, but I'll just ask it now.
Sure.
Because we did this for when we finished all the Megamorphs, but not the Chronicles books. What is your ranking of the Chronicles books?
Uh,
Like your from favorite to least favorite.
from favorite to least favorite.
Because, well, I'll say, because
It
for
might.
me,
So
yeah,
it may have changed since reading this reread. I'm not sure if this would have been the case before we did this podcast, but I think right now for me it is definitely Hork-Bajir, then Andalite under that, then Elamist under that, then Visser under that. And I'm not sure. I don't actually think that it's necessarily fair that Hork-Bajir should be on top, but that's just never going to get wrested from my number one slot. It's too special to me.
Yeah, it's your favorite. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I think I'm like Andalite Chronicles is definitely my favorite.
Hmm.
And but I don't know how much of that
Wait,
has to do with
did I
what.
say that in the right order?
Yeah, you said Hork-Bajir, then Andalite, then Elamist, then
Then Visser.
Visser.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, my
yeah.
brain just like
You're good.
died for a
You're
second.
good.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Part of that for me maybe is because it was the first one that it's also kind of it's the
Hmm.
first time in the series that it's like, oh, there's like a legit thing going on here with that's longer than normal, and there's
Hmm.
it's like really kind of blowing the world wide open. Um, but otherwise, I think I agree with you. I think I would just swap Hork and Andalite. I mean, there's only 4 books, so how different can
Yeah.
our opinions be? But yeah, I do think that each one I enjoy slightly. Oh no, that's not true. Visser is definitely my least favorite. I don't know. If you want to give it an S, fine.
It'd be nice to have one S this season. Throw old
Yeah.
KA a bone.
Did I? Yeah, there was nothing I thought reached those heights. I guess if one book was for me, it probably would be The Familiar, which we only gave a B. Tell you what, I'll give Elmas Chronicles an A if you let me give Familiar, or sorry, an S if you let me give Familiar an A. Can we bargain?
You know what? I could give Familiar an A.
Okay.
I'm willing to make that bargain.
All right, it's done. It's set in stone.
There we go. Season got a lot better.
It really did. Because I'm like, also, yeah, I still think those structural issues will just bug me, and I do think it's not perfect. Like, it's not on the level of an S, but I could see reading it again and being like, those things wouldn't bother me as much if I was aware of how it was
Mhm.
structured already in my head.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you said that you weren't sure about Andalite Chronicles because it was your first time reading a Chronicles, but I think if you went back and reread it right now, you'd be like, oh, this has the same amount of just absolute batshit crazy ideas that Ellimist Chronicles did, but it's more structured and far more character driven in a way that Ellimist Chronicles kind
Yeah.
of can't be because all the other characters. Like the character is a fucking unknowable cosmic entity, and I do think that that's just an inherent thing about the book. Like that's why I don't mind it so much that the book kind of has to fall into this very weird territory. But yeah, I think you would find that the Andalite Chronicles was basically what you wanted Ellimist Chronicles to be if you reread it right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that means looking at our rankings here,
Hmm.
we have 4 Ds and 2 Fs,
Oh
which
boy.
is we have never had an F before, and our most Ds last season was 3.
Yeah, right off a cliff.
Um, we do have 4 A's, actually pretty good.
That is pretty good, yeah.
1 S, that's actually somewhat comparable to season 3 when we had 5 A's and 1
Hmm.
S. And only 1 B. Last season we had 4 B's.
Hmm.
And then a couple of C's, but that's about the same. So yes,
Yeah.
we had less like decent books and a lot more bad books.
Yeah, even though I changed my opinion on some of these books, I do think that I'm standing by what I said way, way back when about the Animorphs flop era, which is that, like, we never really get to a point where it's just all shit, right? Like, we just
Mhm.
get to a point where the shit is worse and more frequent. But it's not like we lost it's just the great books are just now good, and the books that should have been middling are now awful, and the awful books are really awful. But we still
Yeah,
get good books, right? We still have some
yeah,
good ones.
it's true. There's still good ones in there.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's rough, man. That's rough.
it is pretty rough. We had a rough season.
Well, but it didn't feel, for the most part, I think seriously, the Ellen Jarrow books really saved my life because, like I said, even going from like A, F, A, D, A, D,
Hmm.
it was still, it had those anchor points to cling
Yeah.
to. That was like next week can always be a good one again. You always had that shot
Hmm.
until it wasn't. Well, why don't we hear from some of our listeners' thoughts on the season?
Yes, I want to hear our listeners.
Some which now these are emails that we've been holding over for a couple of weeks, so they may not be all inclusive of Ellimist Chronicles and stuff like that, but there's thoughts on overall some of the recent books we've discussed.
Hmm.
We'll start with Nick No Name. And
Hi,
don't
Nick.
worry if you're worried about this episode going short. The emails are long.
I was not worried.
Great. Okay. Nick writes, "Hi, Yerky folks," as you would say. Couple
I
of
would.
previous book thoughts incoming. For the record, well, he does have 2 numbers, number 1 and number 2, but it looks like there's more than 2 thoughts, so we can table that for now. We can table that for now. Number 1. Axe thought speaks in human morph for the first time in book 35, The Proposal. I guess we're going back to season 3. This
Hmm.
is strange because in book 8, The Alien, he specifically says he cannot thought speak in human form. I suppose the reasoning is thought speak is somehow disabled due to human ability for auditory speech. However, that doesn't really make sense to me because Hork-Bajir can speak, but the Animorphs and Axe are able to thought speak when morphed as Hork-Bajir. It was jarring to read through a couple dozen books where Axe cannot or does not thought speak in human morph after having explicitly called it out, and then being able to thought speak in human morph without anyone commenting on it. I wish that Axe had said something like, I'm kind of dumb. I didn't think I could thought speak because of my human mouth, but I guess I actually could the entire time to acclimate me to this new reality. I learned recently they changed the book 8 passage in reprints from, so the original line was,
Mm-hmm.
it was Tobias on patrol far overhead. Of course, no one could answer him. Humans can use thought speech only when they're in a morph, and since I was in a human body, I too was restricted to spoken language. 2, the new one, of course, none of the humans could answer him. They can use thought speech only when they're in a morph. Since my human body itself is a morph, I could have responded, but Tobias went on. So Axe goes from being forced to not interact with Tobias to just being a dick and ignoring Tobias. All right. General thoughts on there's more, but we'll stop at this point. Thought speech and its mechanics, because there are a few parts this season as well where I feel like thought speech, I mean, we find out that Tumen, I still don't understand. Why did the Andalites not have thought speech, but then later they did have it?
They weren't evolved yet.
So you just evolve thought speech? That's just a thing?
Or, I don't know, maybe they didn't have language yet.
Does that mean it's like
sure,
a psychic
you have to evolve
power? I guess.
Yeah, sure. They don't have the right brain parts or something. Like,
yeah,
like a chimp is not physically capable of talking like a human because of like the specific construction of their shit.
I guess you're right. I
don't know.
I guess it makes sense. To me, it just seemed like thought speech is just a thing your species can do or they can't. But I guess that's not necessarily right.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like saying, why can't these Neanderthals speak English or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I vaguely, like Nick, when you said this whole thing with Axe can now speak, I do remember, I felt like a vague sense of recognition, like, oh yeah, I was kind of picking up on that. And maybe I picked up on that in the Alien as well, book 8, but I don't know. I feel like this is the sort of thing that we discussed a lot at the beginning of the series when we were trying to determine the exact rules. And at this point, I'm kind of just like, yeah, it's not consistent. But at least it actually does make more sense that he should be able to thought speak. So I'm not going to question it. Fuck it. And then I just forgot about it.
Yeah. Well, at this point, because it's like there's so many contradictory instances that what's the point? Why am I trying to make it make sense? It just doesn't make sense. I give up.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if it did make sense, but it is what it is. It is funny they changed the book.
Yeah, it's very funny that, because no one would really care. The fact that someone felt like they had to do that. That's interesting. All right, point number 2 from Nick. I noticed in the discussion on the unexpected, this is our Australia book. You guys seemed confused about the lobster-like claws the Taxons had. Remember that? I had an inkling that these were discussed before, so I went all the way back to the first time we meet the Taxons in book 1. And they are introduced as such. And there's a whole passage that he quotes, but the relevant section it says they have rows of legs with little lobster claw hands.
Okay.
And Nick goes on to say, I thought for sure that Will, being a filthy, self-proclaimed taxon lover, would have known intimately all the features of God's most disgusting and least loved creatures.
Oh no, I'm a fake taxon fan. Called out.
So yeah, they're there. Yeah, we were confused by this, but it is, I don't know. It's because it still sounds like the way it's described. It says they have dozens of legs, and then in the third row of legs that are smaller, they have little lobster claw hands. Whereas in the illustration on that one book cover, they have like big ass fucking meaty lobster hooks like right on the front. It doesn't, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picturing it that way now because we keep going into it. But yeah, I mean, I guess that part just never really stuck with me. I just glossed over it as a kid every time in my imagination. So
yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, maybe they say this every time. I don't know.
Well, I love the lobster claws because I love the taxons.
I could get a taxon bisque.
How I learned to stop worrying and love the lobster claws.
Next, Nix writes, I am on Jonathan's side about the writing for book 45. Love that. This was the revelation.
Mm-hmm.
When I complained about some, I thought there were some pacing or details left out.
Right, the shit that no real person cares about. You and I guess Nick.
A couple of people also wrote in, I think, and were on my side.
No, I think they're all wrong.
Nick says the lack of smooth transitions itself didn't bother me that much, but the amount of shit that went on in the book was just confusing to me. I had to reread some action scenes multiple times because everything read so jumbled up. The series was spinning its wheels so much that truly a disservice is done to all these revelations by throwing them into a single book. They could have used saving Marco's dad plot in the Gay Andalites book. Maybe they get the Z-space transponder components from them, and then they can intercept signals and find out about Viscera 1 in this book. So this book that we gave an A to, Nick says, wasn't as much of a fan. I mean, I can't argue. Obviously, they should have spread out a lot of these plot points over the whole season. That is true.
Yeah, I think we both agree with that point.
Yes, that probably would have made for a better experience overall. But hey, what can you do? You got to work with what you got. Book 46, that would be The Deception.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, felt like too much action, too rushed, too shallow. There are legitimately interesting ideas, like what if the Yeerks tried to start World War III, that are handled with a lack of seriousness that betrays the previous books. On a smaller scale, going back to the book where Tom's Yeerk is going to be away from the Yeerk pool for more than 3 days, the stakes in that book feel real. Even though the ending wraps it up pretty neatly to reset the plot for the next book, you do feel like you've learned more about Jake and Tom. Here with Axe, I don't feel like we've learned anything. He almost feels like his personality has been reset to as far back as book 8.
Yeah, that's all fair.
That's it goes back to what we were saying about the world, like the feeling too big and harder to find a hold in. And then also, to me, almost feels like a counter to you liking the Axe being a bigot in the Gay Andalites book, where I feel like he spent enough time on Earth where he shouldn't be a bigot as much. Like, that should have happened earlier, I think. I think that this is too late in the series. Like, he should have softened by now, as opposed to just now finding out that he's still an asshole.
But he's only he's a bigot toward Andalite things. He's like, humans don't understand. Sure, I get racism is bad on humans because of course humans are all the same. They're all humans, right? They're not Andalites but Andalites, it's different.
Humans
it's don't get vehicles.
I still think it would have played better for me if it happened sooner, but
yeah, I mean, that's
fine.
Reasonable. I do think Axe is underutilized, especially in the beginning of the series.
I think that's the issue, is just that as readers, by this point, you want to love Axe. So for them to just be like, and he's a piece of shit sometimes, which can be good. I mean, you should maybe challenge readers with characters that way, but...
Yeah, I do kind of like that. I like that you love him when they shoot that at you. But to be fair, most people love Axe pretty quickly, so they could have done that pretty quickly and still challenged you on it.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, getting to the end of this email here. There are so many ways some of these later filler books could have been used to advance the plot instead of wasting time and good ideas. Now that we're in the end game of the series, I know the end season recap episode is coming soon. You're in it, buddy. I would be interested to hear Jonathan's predictions going into the end. We've had so much weird bullshit over the past 40 plus books. They discovered Atlantis with radioactive mer people. Rachel does 9/11. They gave a buffalo the power to morph. They've time traveled like 6 times. My question to ponder before the end is, will this series end in some extremely weird and wild way, like the Helmacrons returning with some sort of new technology to save Earth?
Now, don't spoil it.
Or will it be like the end of Mass Effect, where nothing really mattered in the lead up to the ending? The war just ends somehow, and we cut to an epilogue 60 years later, and adult Jake is telling his grandkids about the time he was a child soldier. There is still one scene coming up I remember reading from my youth that now floats free in my head, divorced of any context. I don't want to give away my feelings on this scene and how it may relate to the end, but every time I think about it, I have, in italics, thoughts.
Ooh, thoughts.
As always, fuck Seropedia, signed Nick Weird. Nick sometimes assumes a different last name.
I see. Nick of
So,
many names.
all right. So, maybe I should have saved this email for the second, but that's fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that is something I want to talk with you about because you had said that you had heard some things about the end, so I wanted to kind of go over what you did and didn't know. I don't know if this is the time for that. If we still have emails, maybe we want to end the episode on it.
Well, because we have Reddit thoughts, and those are all going to be about sort of overall thoughts on this season.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, sure, fine. Yeah, We'll save it. We'll put a pin in that
Okay.
for a minute, and we'll make that our finale of this episode.
I do already have a pin in it, so.
Great, good. All right, so we'll transition over to an email we have from Lane, which also has multiple talking points.
Yes.
Lane writes, "Hey again, boys," capital B. That's us.
Right.
"I intended on sending this stuff with my last message, but I forgot, so you get it now." Grinning emoji. "I've got more thoughts, capital T, on stuff." We got an italic.
A lot of thoughts coming in.
Yeah. So buckle the fuck up. Point number one. And guess what? It's thought speech. So apparently people are thinking about thought speech for some reason.
All right.
This season. I guess it came up in one of the last few books. I don't know. Lane writes, "I do find the discussion of," or maybe we brought it up and I just forgot. "I do find the discussion of thought speech to be an interesting one. I wonder how much of it is actual words and voices, or if there's more imagery and feelings-based communication. I'm dubious on how canon the whole having to disguise one's voice like Marco did is. Though, because it makes I'm just bad at reading. Because it makes zero sense when compared to the past books. By that logic, Axe couldn't have possibly fooled any of the controllers when he's impersonated Visser 3 or 1 before. Surely that would mean he has the voice of an Andalite child. I really think it'd be more like an energy or feeling to go along with the mental images shared. When directly compared, it seems obvious to everyone that Axe is not the Visser, because he just feels evil or whatever. Though to be honest, you'd think they wouldn't confuse the two outside of speciesism, because one is literally an adult and should be larger than the child. Also, on more than one occasion, the Animorphs have communicated to people they know using their thought speech, and none of that rigmarole was needed. Just one of the many inconsistencies in the series that maybe could have been avoided had some sort of series Bible been created for the ghostwriters with stronger rules and definitions, because apparently, according to K.A. herself, they really didn't provide great outlines. I guess we kind of covered this, but I still agree that thought speech makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, right? Is that they do say in the books on multiple occasions, like, oh, the thought speech transcends language barriers because it operates on some more fundamental level, and it is like Lane was saying here, like, oh, it is more like images and emotions and ideas. But then Andalites have fucking words for stuff. Like, what's that about? Where's that come from? And it doesn't. Yeah,
Yes,
it's just not consistent. It's just there.
I don't even know how I would make it consistent. Like what rules I would put in place.
Yeah, I mean, if you were redoing it, would you even bother to make it consistent? Would you say like, I want this world consistent and I want this to work, or would you say like, fuck it, that's just one of the fun aspects of the series. I'm not too worried about it. Fuck it, they thought speech. Don't think about it.
Oh well, I know what I would do. I've said it
Mhm.
before, and I'll say it again.
Oh yeah, I mean, okay,
It's magic.
that I wouldn't do, but
It would just be magic.
I mean, I will say that if I didn't make it consistent, I wouldn't call out the rules. Like, I wouldn't be all like, I had to disguise my voice or whatever, unless I decided there was a rule that you had to do that.
Or you make
You either
that
don't
part
worry
of
about it or
the-
you do.
It should be the characters being like, "That's weird. Like, how does that work?" Like, they should be exploring this too. They're the ones experiencing it for the first time. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Thought number 2 from Lane.
Hmm.
I agree that the formatting of the series, like the rotating narrators, really hurts the overall series by forcing the narrative to make choices to either having plot relevant books with specific characters, or if the plot doesn't evolve for another few characters, having to make a filler book instead just to get past the narrator. Yeah, that could have been solved with more long term planning. But when you're popping out books every month, I guess it can't always be more than just book to book short term planning. Based on what I've read, though, the original intent of the series was not to be this long to begin with. So I think if KA had really been able to do the series like she wanted, it would have been so much better overall. Parallel universes and all that, though, bemused, sad face. I don't know what that emoji is, but it's got the closed eyes and the eyebrows are kind of both pointed up, oh well,
Hmm.
resigned face.
It's yeah, I know what it looks like.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of the issue. Where we're going to see next season when that breaks a little bit. I'm curious what that's going to be like, but yeah, if it's like, oh, I have a great idea for an Axe book, well, too bad. You got to wait 8 books, bitch.
Hmm.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah, that's something I want to pay more attention to in the end. Now that they have broken the pattern, because I don't think I ever really thought about that before. But I wanna really drill down when we finish this series up into like, why did you pick this? Now that you aren't beholden to specific characters, why'd you pick this one for this part of the story? So,
Yeah. The part of the issue is you also are like, oh well, if some kid's favorite Animorph is Rachel,
hmm,
you don't want to skip a Rachel book or
yeah. But then you end up in the other problem where you're just like, well, what were the what were the last two Rachel books, huh?
right.
Helmicron's The Weakness. If you didn't like the separation, then Jesus Christ, you've got some time before there was a good Rachel book.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. All right. Point number 3. Thought number 3. It's a shame that Axe and Tobias weren't featured more often for most of the series, because they're definitely in the top ranking of most developed and complex characters, IMO. I think, as mentioned before, parentheses 2 question marks, Scholastic believed that because they weren't human most of the time, readers and kids wouldn't be able to relate to them. But it's funny that they are a whole series based on non human characters, so just screw that logic. I'm not so sure their last few books in the New Order make up for that, but I guess it actually may have been worse if they had had more books. Then they'd be more likely to be affected by capital F filler, shocked, screaming, scared emoji, parentheses, more than they already have been. I do agree. This is something I've been thinking about actually that I'll say.
Hmm.
I think that in general this series it's it's very contradictory in that it's the characters are both its greatest strength and greatest weakness. I think Tobias acts as well, but to me Tobias is maybe the most is the epitome of this, where on one hand I think he's a great, fascinating, complex character with a lot going on inside of him that I want to explore. And at the same time, almost none of the series does justice to that. So it's like, how is it that I love him and think he's well written, but also think, generally speaking, he's not, they don't do a good job writing him? They walk this strange line. Maybe it's just simply KA to ghostwriters or something, and it's been too long since I remembered, but there's this, it's like they write him just well enough to hint at a great character, but then they're like, yeah, but you gotta morph into a skunk right now, so we're going to talk about that for 50 pages, so deal with that. um
Hmm.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean,
It's
Tobias in general does kind of have an issue in that, like, his primary arc, like, the big part of his arc is book 3, and then he gets this huge shift in 13, and then he kind of, like, he kinda has to redo his book 3 arc in book 23 to, like, cope with what happened in 13, and I think all of that is really good character writing, and then but then it's kind of done, right? It's kind of done,
mm,
and then we do get the Ellen Jarrow, books with the whole Taylor thing and all of that, but that doesn't quite pay off in the same way, and a lot of it ends up having to retread some ground. It's similar to how like Cassie really felt very complete in book 19. I do think at a large part of it is the series going on too long, or
Yeah.
inconsistent pacing. Because again, I don't think that Jake really felt like a character to me that I was interested in until book 16, which like at this point Tobias is getting pretty close to over. You know what I mean? Like if you like map out these great characters and the parts of their arc that mean something and the parts of their arc that just are kind of there. Here's some more of this character. They're not happening at the same time. They don't line up.
Yeah, yeah, they're it's just like real life. They develop at different rates.
Yeah. But
I
yeah,
think
like you said, you end up with these great well explored characters that spend most of their time not being well explored.
another thing that I feel like I don't know why. I guess I can think of reasons they don't focus on it, but it seems like just give us the Tobias Rachel drama. Like actually
Mhm.
give it to us. Don't just
Mhm.
hint at it and kind of have it in the background to the point where I don't think it was until like book 30s in the 30s that I actually was convinced they were a couple. Like it's like so vague. And even Jake and Cassie, like that is the angle. If these characters have their personal arcs, so
Mhm.
to speak, quote unquote, completed, or at least it seems that way, now that's when you start pairing them up in different ways. It doesn't have to be romantic. You have the book where, well, do Ax and Marco get along? Make them go on a road trip and figure that out. That's
Mhm.
like the standard TV show writing thing is like season 3, which two characters haven't done a thing together yet?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would have loved to see more of that. And again, especially Tobias and Rachel, it's like, why? That's right there.
Mhm.
Why aren't you focusing on that? Is it because they like don't want this to be a romance series because boys won't like it? Is it because it's too weird that he's a bird? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even the Jake Cassie stuff that you said, like, okay, you've got this fun kind of like they both like each other, but they won't say it thing, and okay, so that comes to a head in book 26, and they have their kiss, and now they're dating, and okay, so now that's just there, and now what? Does that mean we get to like start exploring? Other things with like, Cassie Marco or something like that. Like, not necessarily a relationship, but just like now that that's established, where are they go, what are we focusing on now, or do we move and change the way the relationship looks now that they're actually dating? Well, in book
Yeah.
41 we almost do that. Jake has to start thinking about the way he and Cassie are together, but like he mostly just does it in the weird dream sequence with weird dream sequence Cassie, and that should affect his feelings on real Cassie, but then we get a Beaver book and an Australia book and
Yeah, right. It's when you do the will they won't they thing,
Mhm.
usually when they get together it often falls apart because there's no more tension or they're actually kind of boring together. But in this book it's like, are they boring together? I wouldn't know. They're
Yeah,
together and then they just move on. Who
yeah,
cares?
and it doesn't have to fall apart because, like you said,
There's
there's six
so much.
Animorphs.
Oh yeah.
So now that you've done that, you can do other things, or you could move up, like because the will they won't they as kids shifts into now you're in a relationship in a war, right? That's a different
Mhm.
story. There's so
And
many
one of you
opportunities, and it's
is
not.
like a would-be pacifist and the other one
Hmm.
is the military general. Like that there's so much tension to mine from that
Hmm.
relationship. And I think there's like a couple of parts where they're kind of like, Cassie gave me a look. Like it's like, what? Anyway.
Hmm.
So yeah, okay. Okay. Moving on.
Anyway, I feel like we didn't finish this email yet.
No, we didn't.
Okay.
Thought number 4. Final thought. Morphing cube rules. Rules in quotes.
Hmm.
To harken back to an older book, I totally agree with Will that the Buff a Human book totally just said, fuck the established rules for the cube and morphing in general, when anything and everything that so much as touched the cube could immediately be morph capable. It could have been explained away as the cube malfunctioning or breaking temporarily, but instead it just went along with that. Like, you're supposed to focus on the cube to get the ability to morph, and you also have to really focus to morph. A buffalo and an ant are not even able to do that sort of thing to the level required. But I digress. That book is one of my least favorites because of that rule breaking, and it's just otherwise not memorable. So another buffa human hater.
Glad to have another buffa human hater on my side.
Yeah, yeah, you're not. Well, you're only not wrong because the book says you're not wrong.
You know what? And I think I might have made some jokes about it, but I could buy the buffa human somehow doing it, right? Like I could buy
yeah.
The ant. Yeah, the ant is. It's fun to have the stupid body horror, but like, yeah,
Sure.
come on, what are we doing? But the buffa human, it's not like buffalo are mammals. They are social creatures. Cassie's an animal person. You could have had a thing where it's like Cassie soothes the buffalo, and it makes sense that the buffalo is somehow very focused on Cassie at this moment because of that social connection.
Mhm.
I'd buy it. I would buy it, but it's also just not there. Like the buffalo just touches it, and
I reason it in my head as I rationalize it as that an animal, because the animal is so much simpler compared to us, that if their brain just gets a thought in its head, there's some. It's more like one track minded than us, maybe, is a stupid way of saying it. That they're just all of a sudden the buffalo just like sees a human, thinks human, and that just kind of triggers something in their brain that basically we don't really, maybe nobody knows how morphing works because it's this weird alien technology, and maybe it works differently for one species than another one. I don't know. There's all of this is stuff I have to do, but
yeah, the obvious answer is it's the same as thought speech, right? There's no consistent rules, and she doesn't remember what she did 5 books ago. And
but the difference is, thought speech comes up every book and is constantly contradicting itself, whereas there's really the 2 times I feel like that the morphing, it's really the David is the thing that makes this not make sense, right?
Yeah, more than anything else, yeah.
So it's like I'm willing to just be like, I don't know, it was so long ago. The morphing cube, like, they should have explained it in depth, but because they didn't, I'm okay with just being flexible. But
yeah, I guess, except that I love the David thing, and the buffa human is there.
Well,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, if
yeah.
I have to pick sides here, I know what side I'm picking.
No, it has nothing to do with how good David trilogy is. It's just strictly thinking about the morph cube rules. I'm just like, I don't know. It's magic. It's fucking magic.
I don't want it to be magic.
Well,
I want
tough
it
shit.
to be alien technology.
Well, guess what? I already got hired to do the reboot, and they're using my ideas. So go fuck yourself.
This is exciting news.
Elaine writes, "That's all I can think to gripe on for now, LOL. I can only imagine how much time it would take to read this email. So if you need to pick and choose on what to read, feel free."
That's not how we do things around here.
Boy, Lane, you should have put that at the beginning of the email, you see. Until next time, Lane. And then Lane also dropped a couple of links in here. One is a Reddit thread in which KA writes some responses. And one is an article which has a bunch of 12 facts about the Animorphs book series that maybe, we'll put these in for a rainy day, maybe for a future KA episode or something.
Yeah, I'll look through these because I do think the Q&As that we've been using are starting to dry up. So yeah, we might need to start pulling from these links.
We'll see what we got there. I guess we can also shout out Rose, even though we can't confirm the contents of the package yet.
I'm sure it's so. Yes, so that package has arrived, but I am.
They don't know what we're talking about. We haven't mentioned it in 8 episodes.
True. Explain what's going on.
Also, just a quick shout out. You may remember a while back, one of our listeners said that they found an issue number 1. Sorry, a part 1 of Megamorphs 1 in a used bookstore, which was like a rare book we weren't sure it really existed, where it's just half of Megamorphs 1 as it was published in 2 parts, apparently, in some regions or something. and offered to pick it up and send it for Will's personal collection. And we took them up on that offer, and the package has been delivered. But so we'll maybe
Yeah,
once you
so
actually get it, we'll talk about that.
yeah, so thank you very much, Rose. Yeah, she sent the package and it has arrived, but I'm at a different like it's the day after it arrived and I'm at a different location right now. So I wasn't able to
Rose
confirm it, but we have a
also
picture.
Rose also hasn't listened to the podcast in a long time, so
Oh,
don't worry about keeping them up to date. By the time this podcast gets out, you'll have seen it, and we'll talked about it.
yeah, I'll have seen it by the time you listen to this, Rose.
All right, but that's our emails. Let's look at this Reddit thread that I posted here.
Ooh, okay, a Reddit thread. You posted it?
Yeah, that I created. As I
Oh,
do
I
every
see.
season.
I see.
Yes.
I thought you meant you like sent me a link or something.
No. So this, as I do every season, I also asked the Animorphs subreddit what they thought about this section of the books. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at these yet, so I'm gonna be reading them for the first time. But I laid out which books we were talking about. I asked, how did you feel about the ghostwriters, Ellen Jarrow, the filler books, the plot, etc.
And just be careful because I feel like a lot of people might
Listen, I told
include
them
book 48
I told
as
them to
part of
mark
this.
spoilers. No, I told them which books. I told them the
know.
books.
I'm just worried that people last time that one fucker started talking about how great book 37 was.
I don't know what that was about, but in general, these are Animorphs fans. These are people who read and write long emails. I think they're literate enough to. I was clear. I was plain with my language up front.
All right. I just don't trust internet people.
All right. First comment. It's crazy how in the last page of the last book. Okay, that's not what it says. That was a little joke.
That's pretty funny. That's a funny joke.
All right, so let's see. There's not too many of these. I think as the seasons go on, less Redditors are willing to respond to our bullshit. Although I bet there will be a lot for the last season because that's
probably true.
Final. Mm-hmm. All right, so Croasaur, user Croasaur, who has the flare Notlet, wrote, all caps, excellent. Okay. Glad things started moving instead of a monster of the week, although many enjoyable. KA and ... guy ... coming back was wholeheartedly felt. Okay, I'm not sure if this person understood the assignment.
They definitely didn't because KA and Guy have not come back yet.
Guy is Michael Grant? Who's
presumably,
Guy?
Right? Well, they don't come back till the very end, so
now I'm gonna say something else here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she came back for Megamorphs and Elemist Chronicles.
Sure.
I also, in the title of this post, the way I phrased it was, I used the word penultimate. Do you think people thought that means ultimate? Because that's a common mistake. Again, I wrote the numbers in there.
Yeah, anyway. Well, I'm not gonna lie. That person doesn't necessarily sound literate.
Well, I was gonna be a little more charitable and say maybe English is not their first language.
I mean, that's possible too, I suppose.
Or it could just be a child. I don't know.
That still counts as illiterate.
Anyway, that's the high. I'm reading these, of course, in order from highest to lowest upvotes. So that's the one people liked.
Highest upvoted. Oh no.
Next up is
skip that one though.
This user is RB Wildcard wrote, some of the weakest books in the series, honestly. 37, 39, 41 are some of my least favorites. So that's the weakness, the hidden,
the familiar.
And the familiar, yeah. Oof, fighting words, buddy. I do like 36 just because it's fun, but that's not a great one either. There are also some of the best books sprinkled in there as well. 38 is really good. Which one is that?
That's the one we
The Arrival.
gave an A to. The Arrival, yeah.
No, I believe we gave it a B.
Oh, did we give it a B? We dropped down to a B? Okay.
That's what I wrote.
I gave it an A.
Yeah, that's your problem. Plus the end game books starting with 45 are great. I didn't really get the Elemist Chronicles as a kid, but now it's one of my favorites. Megamorphs number 4 is interesting, and I like how it deals with the stacked deck of the Animorphs being really important characters in the grand scheme of the war. Okay, so similar thoughts to us.
Yeah, I think so too.
Good,
Yeah,
good,
I
good
think
thoughts.
yeah, the only difference really is 41, and to be honest, I would have agreed with that wholeheartedly before this reread where I gave it more of a
Mm,
chance. So,
yeah. Next up is Conscious Star 6831, who gave thoughts pretty much on every book individually, which we love.
okay.
Said a lot of people hate 36. I thought it was weird even for Animorphs, but I don't hate it. Utterly skippable though. 37 did Rachel dirty. Sure, she's supposed to go crazy, but 37 is too much. 38 is interesting. I like meeting the other Andalites and solidifying the Andalites aren't purely good guys, just as Yurks aren't all evil. Pretty good book. I'm just going to go case by case and see how they
Mhm.
agree with us. 39, Flaming Sack of Garbage. Nuff said. That's
Oh,
Buffahuman.
geez.
Yeah.
There's some fighting words for you.
40 is like 38 revisited. Didn't love it. 41, Blah skip.
People don't like 41, man.
42, I don't like the Helmicrons, made even weirder by Magic School Bus inside the human body vibes. 43, pretty good, wraps up the Taylor story, sort of, worthwhile read. 44, this one also gets a lot of hate. I enjoyed seeing Australia, though the treatment of the people there was okay, but I'm not super in tune with that, so maybe I'm completely wrong on that. Jury's still out. 45, awesome. One of my favorites, the beginning of the end. That's the test, right? Or no?
45?
Or which one is 45?
45 is the revelation.
Oh, the Revelation. Sorry, that's what I
Yeah, yeah.
meant in my head.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
I meant.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Revelation. So we agree there. 46, interesting. It breaks the narration cycle. Also, in that Axe defies Jake. I enjoyed it. Okay. 47, again, gets some hate. I thought it was a fun story, not critical to the overall plot. If the Hork-Bajir had stayed in the same valley until the end, the story wouldn't have changed much. But interesting to see the we'll fight a battle we're almost sure to lose thing. Megamorphs 4, they said, I do like the what if scenario. Not the best book ever, but interesting. And Elemist Chronicles, really interesting. A good teaser for the end of the series. I like knowing more about who the Elemist is and Krayak.
Yeah, I think a lot of those things we agree on, although some of them we definitely differ on.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird people do not like 41. I wonder how many of these people have reread it recently cuz again, a lot of these line up with how I felt
Mm,
about it, like just holding on to my old kid memories.
yeah.
Um and not the like let's really dive in and try to like think about it critically recent stuff. Yeah, I wonder if people have recently reread it or not. I do think it's very funny the book for it because both book 44 and 47 we're getting a couple of these like is this book okay? Is this book racist? Is it problematic to like this book? Am I allowed to like book 44? I did like that part of the assessment.
Yeah, that's fun. um, uh, Dipper JC replied to this post and also said, I don't think I'll ever be able to watch Game of Thrones again without thinking of Rachel as, and there's a name that's spoiler marked, so I won't click it.
Oh. Oh,
I
don't
don't
click
know.
it. Yeah,
I'm not
cuz
going to
I
click it. I don't
yeah, don't
know.
click it. Don't
I
click
don't
it.
know who it could mean. All right.
Yeah, don't click it.
All right.
I
Next
hope
up,
they're not going to talk about later books. Yeah.
that's it. We have another big post from a user whose name I remember. I think we've covered them before. Torrential with a 7 instead of a second T. Torrential.
Okay, I don't remember them, but that sounds sure.
Yeah, that name sounds familiar to me. Said, I like to keep it positive, but I owe people honesty, and well, y'all very much did ask for it.
Uh
The Mutation, a crime against canon. I agree.
oh.
The Weakness, a crime against prose. Sure. The Arrival. I love that this person is using words instead of numbers. That really does help me. The Arrival. Good story, and it's a damn tragedy that the only way to tell the story in first person narration is to have Axe lie to the reader for most of the story. I seem to be the only person bothered by this, though. No, the generally that conceit of it doesn't bother me inherently, but the fact that it's only in there to be a twist did bother me.
Yeah, I think we did We didn't bring that up today when talking about it, but I
We
think we
definitely did
did bring that up
before.
in the episode for sure. So
Yeah. The Hidden. Me prior to reading it. Everybody hates this one. I read it. I mean, it's not essential and it's largely a retread of Megamorphs 1, but I kind of like it. It benefits from low expectations. Respect the Buffahuman. Now we're talking. Thank you, Torrential. Thank you. The Other contains the best line of prose in the series. Oh, wow. You know what it is?
I don't. What is it?
It's one we called out on the show. We
I was
mentioned
gonna
this
say, I
line.
feel like there was one in that book. I was wondering.
Oh,
Let's hear it.
man.
Let's hear it.
Ladders lead to places you are not.
Yes. I remember that one. Yeah.
We're not alone in our love of the ladder line. That is a good line.
I do love the ladder line.
I think that's right up there with tail feathers. I think that's good.
It is very good.
Okay, Megamorphs 4. Just in case anyone was at risk of thinking KA's writing was unessential to the series, they come back to write their first entry since Visser, and despite being an alternate reality that won't affect the canon, it's still a decent contender for best book in this stretch, showing exactly how well they'd mastered their craft. Whenever a series does an It's a Wonderful Life plot, you expect the good guys to lose. That's how the TV show handled it. Here, I don't think we give enough credit to the fact that Axe single-hoofedly causes a Yerk defeat in a few weeks, just with a casualty level that's too high for the Ellimist to accept. Yeah, that is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think we did discuss that a little bit in the book. Yeah. And I think
good
we're
stuff.
kind of on the same page. This is one of the strongest of the series. If it weren't for the Familiar or the Ellimist Chronicles, depending on which of us you're looking at, I think we both rated that probably second highest, right?
Yeah, I mean, the
Maybe.
Revelation.
Oh,
but
yeah. I didn't
yeah.
like it as much as the Megamorphs, but
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. The Familiar. I'm far from the first person to say this, but I think KA accidentally sent the Megamorphs 4 outline to the ghostwriter. It uses dream logic, which has the potential to be really cool, but since we never know what should be allowed in this universe, for me, it removes all tension, and thus this book is a slog. I guess I remain the only Familiar stan.
That's pretty exciting. I think that's even more rare than, I think that's by far more rare than a separation stan.
But I don't get it, because I read the separation and I'm like, I get it. I understand why people would hate this book. I don't understand that about the Familiar. I think it's so fun. I don't know. The Journey. That's the one, officer. In spite of my feelings about 36, 37, and 41, if I had the power to decanonize one book, this would be it. Yep. The Test. There are no bad Tobias books. I think how fans receive this one will be based largely on what they think of the illusion, but this book beautifully delves into the pain and persistence of Tobias, and then Tobias gets upstaged by Cassie's crowning moment of doing what has to be done when she solos a whole building full of controllers in her wolf morph entirely off page.
Yeah, I still stand by. I think they
great.
pulled their punch on that Cassie action, but
yeah, whatever.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. You're wrong. The Unexpected. I don't even know. Did I disagree with you? Probably. You're wrong. The Unexpected. Again, benefiting from low expectations, I'm again in the extreme minority in thinking this book is fine. Unessential, of course. Cassie all on her own is the best Cassie. She does a one-woman Air Force One against a squad of Hork-Bajir. Channels impressions of how each of the other Animorphs would handle the situation, performs her second on-page surgery, and her Australian friends decapitate a Hork-Bajir with a boomerang. Now, I kindly invite you to picture exactly how Cassie and Lords got from the Outback to the US. My leading theory so far involves a very extended version of the Edward Bella piggyback scene from the first Twilight movie. Add that to the Patreon. I mean, I agree. I think it's fine. So I'm with you on that one too. So I at least Torrential's with me on Buffahuman in Australia.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about the Australia book anymore, honestly. I'm good.
I'd like talking about
comments on it.
The Revelation, nearly perfect. After a 10-book run in which only 2 of them are what I'd call good, I don't know if I'd say the wait was worth it, but I would change almost nothing about this book. Actually, you know what? I changed the cover and the scene from the book it's based on. You mean to tell me if all the morphs Marco could have chosen to demonstrate the process, he picked the ant? Yeah, that is fucking stupid. Like, do a dog or something. What the fuck? Whatever. The deception. Something I first said as a joke that I've almost come to believe. I think the ghostwriter was initially instructed to write this for Jake, but then the news hit that they were changing up the narration cycle and it had to become an Axe book. By far the shortest Animorphs book, and about 10% of it is Jake reciting specs of US Navy hardware that sound copy and pasted from an encyclopedia. Similar to The Arrival, this is one of those books where the story sounds solid, but in summary, but not so much when you sit down and read it. I think we had similar thoughts.
That basically is exactly what we said, except that is an interesting point about the ghostwriter maybe thinking it was supposed to be a Jake book until the last minute. I wonder.
Yeah.
I hadn't considered that possibility. I wonder if I agree with it or not. I'll have to sit on that one.
Is that because it would have been a Jake book in continuity?
It would have been a Jake book if they hadn't changed it.
Yeah, I mean, that seems pretty strong evidence to me. I believe it. The Resistance. I almost wonder if the ghostwriter wanted to write historical fiction and cannibalized half of an Animorphs book to do it. It's been a while since I read this one, but as I recall, both the past and present storylines have 3 allied factions comprising the good guys. The present day has Animorphs, Hork-Bajir, and Campers, and Civil War has Union Army, townspeople, and free slaves. If there was meant to be a one-to-one parallel between the groups, specifically comparing the formerly enslaved black people to the formerly enslaved Hork-Bajir, that's a big ol' yikes. Yeah, and the Elemis Chronicles, they say this franchise's Silmarillion. K.A. really liked string theory in the 90s, and also when protagonists find a way to switch species and have children. She sure does like that, doesn't she?
She really does like that. That is true.
Is a little bit fucking weird, K.A. What the fuck is your deal?
Yeah, K.A. Applegate definitely is into string theory. Like, you can tell, I think, if you read between the lines on some of the shit that she was writing.
I like string thing theory. You know about that?
What is string thing? I definitely know this.
String thing was a fruit snack in the 90s.
Yes, right, yes. Okay, I just needed to hear the word fruit.
Yeah, it's like a fruity string of artificial fruit.
My
theory is it's delicious.
Okay, so here's our next Patreon, right? Is 90s fruit snacks.
Okay, anything but string theory. I'll kill myself on air. Okay. We have a couple now. Someone with the username Seropedia. I don't know if this person is actually associated with Seropedia, but they replied and said, "I hereby charge
judgment.
I hereby charge number 39 with crimes against canon as well." And the Torrential said, "Marty." And now I'm just reading their stupid Reddit jokes. Marty, you're not thinking extra canonically. We need a malfunctioning Escafil device due to Helmicron shenanigans to justify my post-canon fanfic plans, Marty.
I think I would like that joke better if it wasn't posted on Reddit.
And then Seropedia that yes-anded it again and said, "Whoa, that's heavy. Wait, Doc, are you telling me that Helmicrons messed up the Escafil device with a tiny spaceship?"
I wish you were doing better. Like you're not
it's
really
the
doing
best
the
I
impression.
can do. I can't do
the
full,
voices.
I can't do a full Michael J. Fox. I just did the intonation. I'm not that. Hey, Doc. And then it's just Morty, is what it is.
Yeah, I was gonna say the problem is you're gonna slip into Rick and Morty.
Because you can't. I think Rick and Morty ruined Back to the Future impressions. You can't do it anymore. You're just doing Rick and Morty.
Yeah, you're right.
All right.
That's the worst thing Justin Roiland has ever done.
I agree. And maybe the only thing he's done that's not that great. Delete that part. The next, there's one more comment on Reddit, but it's a short one from Conscious Star 6831.
Is this the same Conscious Star, or is this a different one?
It is.
With more numbers?
Yeah. Sorry, I was like, is this the same person? Yes, it's the same person. They also wrote, "I will also say that when I was a kid, I stopped reading the books right around this point, and it wasn't because this stretch of books was awesome. I didn't come back and finish the series until I was an adult, which is too bad because the final arc, starting with 45, is pretty awesome. I've actually made some more than one more than one list of ways the Animorph story could be retold by just omitting roughly books 36 through 44, plus a few other dumpster fires. Looking at you, 28, to make the story more concise and engaging. So Conscious Star would get rid of basically this whole season. Yeah, I mean, fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, and in terms of the final arc starting with 45, yeah, I mean, this is the fucking problem with the if only 45 were after the Elemist Chronicles and it were a little, because goddamn does it just not actually matter that 46 and 47 are around, because I really wish that I could put 45 into the final like arc, right? Because like when we got there, it was like things are happening, and it does feel kind of weird to break the season like here, and
Mhm.
not have 45 be the start of the next one. But I don't know, I think this is
That's
for
how
the
they did
best.
it.
I think it's for
Yeah.
the best. That's how we did it too. It's how I did it.
Yeah, it's how you fucked it up as usual.
No, it's you're gonna agree with me in the end.
We'll see. Well, thanks, Redditors. I'll give you many upvotes, much karma for your responses. And I guess now we can finish the show by getting back to that question that Nick posed about our predictions, or my predictions, for the end of this series.
Yeah, and maybe focus less on like predictions exactly, obviously. I don't want you spoiling it for yourself. I know you've said you
Yeah.
don't like to do that before. But
Mhm.
yeah, so I guess that's really the idea. Like what the question here is, like, what's the state of the series right now? Like what where are we, and like what are we thinking, right? You've said you've heard a couple things about the ending.
So what I know about the ending basically is very vague, but from
Uh-huh.
from from what I understand and have read in the past
Mhm.
is simply that it is not a I've heard that it is. I don't even know if controversial is the right word, but maybe it is. But I've heard that some people have been unsatisfied by it. Basically, like, I'm not necessarily expecting everything gets tied up in a neat bow and we killed the Yerks and we're all happy and we go home now. It sounds like there's something, either it's a little open ended or something. I don't know, but that's the vibe as I understand it, is just that it's not the cut and dry sort of ending that maybe people wanted.
Mhm. I think that what you're saying is technically right, but I think you might be drawing some implications from it that aren't right.
Mm,
So I don't want to get too much into it. I will
yeah.
say, as a kid, I was not satisfied at the ending, and I have come around on it as an adult. I like it. So I'll just say
Okay.
that. I like it.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how I enjoy it now as a kid.
um yeah, so let's think about the state of the series. We've got, it's finally looks like things are starting again. Marco is what revealed in some, so well, he's not revealed. Marco has faked his death,
He's
um
off the grid.
off the grid. Visser 1 is dead. His mom is saved. Visser 3 is Visser 1 now. We are potentially moving into open invasion of Earth. Um, you know, even the books progressing from that are a little bit shaky in terms of like what they mean and where, or not what they mean, but like where they fall and why they're there. But it does look like we're trying to move toward an ending. Like, what are your thoughts on all this? Where we stand now, and where we might end up, or where what you might want to see resolved or not resolved?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing to try to figure out, because
Hmm.
now looking back and having talked so much about the season at length, it does really hit home just how rough this section of books was.
Hmm.
And it does make me go, like, okay, that's a real shame. We've been spinning our wheels for a while, but at this point, I assume I don't know for sure. I assume they had an idea this series was going to end soon.
It sure. I think she knew at this point.
Like maybe not 48 is our next book, right?
Mhm.
Like maybe not 48, but by the time you get to like book 50, there's only 54 books. You've got to know that you're
Mhm.
wrapping up.
Yeah, and like 45 does feel like I realized I'm wrapping up soon now. Like it almost does feel like at book 44 she was like, I don't know if I'm going to get renewed or not, and at book 45 she was like, I'm not. That kind of feels like that.
Right. But
So,
the problem is then you follow it up with like a couple of books that are just whatever. But so
yeah.
it's like
She
was it
doesn't
important or not? I don't
fucking know.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
But so I am hoping that it's hard because I also don't know. Like we have 7 books left. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Yeah, 7 books,
Mhm.
and that's it. Like no Megamorphs, no Chronicles, just 7 books. That's
Yeah,
it.
we are done with all that. 7
S-
books.
So part of me is almost sad that I'm like, because I do like the good filler books.
Mhm.
So I don't necessarily. I also don't want to see it fall into the like a Netflix miniseries where it all just blurs together because it's just one big plot line that they arbitrarily split up.
Mhm.
But that's probably preferable at this point to the bullshit, dumb, inane, meaningless books. I hope that they still kind of retain sort of individual identities, which I guess they will by virtue of them being different POVs. And hopefully they actually take advantage of those POVs and they actually utilize those characters well at this point. I would like to see all of these characters, I'd like to see their arcs somehow get resolved in a satisfying way. I'd like to see how Cassie deals with. Basically, it seems like we're in the end game where we're done hiding, even though
Mhm.
Marco's literally hiding. But it feels like we're at that point where we're now about to just get the full-on war section of this book. And I guess this is the Deathly Hallows, to put it in terms that for bigots like me.
Yeah, right.
This is what it's like. We're not going back to Hogwarts this year. We're out in the fucking woods and shit's hitting the fan. So, and there's good aspects and bad aspects that could come with that. So, I mean, I guess this just sounds very vague and obvious, but I just hope that every character is done justice. I don't necessarily need every plot wrapped up. I don't need the Andalites to show up in a big ship and help, although that would be fun. uh, I feel like I'd want, I don't know, I want Eric to maybe get a moment to justify his existence. I mean, I guess the thing I'm most, I guess, worried about
Mhm.
is how we square all this with Krayak and the Elemist. And if it's just because it really feels like there's 2 completely distinct stories here.
Mhm.
And does any part of those converge in a way that will satisfy me? What does the Elemist do at the end here? Does he come out like a Deus Ex Machina? Is Krayak defeated? Or is it just like we killed the Yerks and Krayak they're still doing their thing somewhere else and that's just what it is? I don't know. And there's ways you could do all these. There's different ways you could do these that could be executed well or poorly. So it's hard there's just so many possibilities at this point. I'm excited and nervous because we've spent so much of this series with formula and it feels like we cannot stick to that anymore. So it could be great or it could be a disaster. I don't know. Or
I,
somewhere in between.
I'm excited listening to you talk about it. I'm very
Okay.
excited, like knowing what's gonna work for you and what's not, and kind of having some idea of where we're going. I'm excited. Also, though, there's definitely some things that you raised there that were not really on my radar in any of my rereads or as a child. So
Hmm.
I'm excited to be reading it with kind of a critical eye toward that as well. I think we're gonna have a fun time. I think we're gonna enjoy it.
All right. Well,
One
I'm
way or the
excited.
other.
I am excited. And also with the full understanding, I think that any problems I have with the end are very likely problems that already exist and were too late to rectify. But we'll see. I don't know. We're going to see. But unfortunately, we still have to wait a couple weeks. We don't get to jump right into it. We're torturing
Well,
ourselves.
it's not unfortunate. We're doing this on purpose. We don't have to. We could jump right into it immediately. We're choosing not to because we want to.
That's right. Well, this is when we give anyone who's not week to week the chance to catch up to us.
Yeah. Also, it's nice to have a little breaky break.
Yes. Which we'll tell you what's coming up next week. But if you like our show and you want to support us, you can do so by going to patreon.com/theyerkyboys. We have bonus episodes. This week, we're talking about the cartoon Beast Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But the next couple of weeks after that will be more Animorphs related in conjunction with our main feed content. And it's $5 a month. It's great. Go do it. You get song parodies, whatever. It's fun. And also email us, theyerkyboys@gmail.com. Any of your thoughts on this season or any other book or anything? I mean, again, we're heading to the end game. So pretty soon, it's all going to be, fodder for your emails. You won't have to hold back.
Yeah, it'll all be now. We should say, because there's probably some people out there thinking, "Oh no, we're almost done. We got one last stretch, and then the books will be over, and the podcast will be over, and there'll be the end of an era."
And then what will I do every Tuesday? I'll just have to sit for 3 hours and watch a.
I know.
Fucking Terrence Malick movie or something.
Fucking spiraling into existential despair out there, but despair not. Because after this, we have plenty more podcast content scheduled after we finish the series as well. We are going to be doing Alternamorphs. We are going to be doing the entire TV show. We are going to be doing like the video games and all this other shit. There's literally like a year's worth of fucking shit left from this point, almost.
Yes, a little under a year. So, don't feel like this is goodbye. We're sticking around.
Yeah, we're far from goodbye.
Plenty more Patreon pledges to make, my friends.
Mm-hmm,
Every dollar counts.
I don't think it's too late to sign up.
I'll also remind folks, if you like me, you can follow me online at jonathanestis.com. That's my name. And I have other podcasts, and I have YouTube video, and I have other stuff that I write and do. So go check that out.
All right.
Anything you want to plug?
No, I'm good.
Oh.
Thanks everyone for listening. Tune in next time when we will be doing yet another Q&A with KA on The Yerky Boys.